tonight. If you didn't take part in last night, my name is Brittany Fouts. I co-direct RCE Salisbury with Brian Polkinghorn. Brian and I we actually base our RCE location out of the Bosserman Center of Conflict Resolution here in Salisbury, Maryland, of which Brian is the director of. Tonight, we actually have a change in a little bit of the schedule. We're going to be starting off with RCE Georgetown. Maeve and Peg are going to be conducting this presentation, and the title of their presentation tonight is Sustainable Organization Trainings for Georgetown County Public Services. Peg and Maeve, would you like to share your screen with your presentation? I also have it ready to go on mine if you want.
I'm not sure actually if Maeve has made it on yet, so.
Okay.
Do you see her in the list, Brittany? I didn't see her name.
I'll look for you right now.
Oops.
No, I don't see Maeve.
She was out in the field yesterday at this time, and she didn't text me, so she might have had a problem. But I'll pretend I'm Maeve to begin with. So let me just get started then. I'm Peg Howell. I'm affiliated with the Georgetown RISE. The Georgetown RCE, RISE in our case, stands for Resilience, Innovation, Sustainability, and Education, or through education. And our introduction into all this work came through Pam Martin, who many of you know. Pam isn't able to be with us this evening either, but Maeve, Pam, and I have worked very closely with Georgetown County government. We have, as I think Pam has reported before, we have a group of interns from Coastal Carolina University who work every spring and summer. Pam recruits them annually to work in our government in various departments. So so it was interesting to hear Philip's comment toward the end of last night that it was like only 1% of the projects were government associated. Nearly all of the work that CCU is doing and Georgetown RISE is doing is associated with our local Georgetown County government. So I'm going to give you a little orientation to us. We're in the United States, in South Carolina, along the coast. In a small county, 61,000 people in Georgetown County. Our county seat is Georgetown, and you can see that we are on the coast and therefore very heavily in need of focusing on resilience and sustainability. Just to give you a little more detail about the county, we have 5 rivers that are watersheds that come into Winyah Bay, this area here, and then into the ocean. So we have, during the last 6 years, I believe, experienced 6 significant storms, hurricanes, and 1 ice storm that have had some really dramatic impact on our ability to be responsive, and we're finally learning to be a bit more proactive as it relates to increasing threats of sea level rise and storms. By the way, this is Maeve's part of the presentation, so I'm really winging it here. Okay, so this is our sweet little town of Georgetown, South Carolina. You can see we have, you know, a main street right on one of our rivers, and in the background you can see some heavy industrialization. We have a power plant, a paper mill, and an electric, a steel mill, all right outside of our town. So the relationship between industrialization and tourism is intimately interconnected here. This is what Georgetown looks like on a sunny day. This is what Georgetown has looked like through many of the storms that we've had in the past several years of the hurricanes, names that are very familiar to those of us on the coast: Matthew, Florence, Irene, and on and on. So we have, like Charleston, also some sunny day flooding, and we do our best to educate our community about not just reacting, but what Georgetown RISE can do to help get our community, especially our county leaders, to start thinking about what we can do to be more resilient. In that vein, we took on a project with SDG number 11 in mind to work directly with our public services department, something that we've developed called sustainable organization training. Here they are in a first part of the training that we did, which obviously involved an experiential problem. But you can see here that we have the manager for the public services department and all the areas that are seriously impacted by storms, capital projects, vehicles, stormwater across the county, our airport, landfill and recycling, all the buildings, all the facilities that are owned by the county, and roads. So they came to us essentially saying, we need help with our strategic plan. We need help because we're going to be getting reaccredited by the APWA, the American Public Works Association, and we need to be more effective as a team. They had a tremendous amount of turnover in their leadership. I'm sorry, Maeve, I just got a text. I think Maeve is on. Maeve, do you want to jump in?
Hi, Peg.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm very sorry I messed up my times.
Do you want to take over from here? Or you want me to keep going?
Sure. I'm happy to go from this slide, and thanks everyone for your patience. I'm really sorry. All right, so I think Peg just gave you some background on this training for the Public Services Department for Georgetown County, South Carolina. The goals for this training, we had a few different outcomes that we were looking for. First and foremost, we wanted to help the department to complete their reaccreditation with the American Public Works Association. This was something they had to do anyway, but they recognized it as an opportunity to improve their knowledge about sustainability and resilience. In addition to that, as part of that process, they recognized the importance of updating their mission, vision, and values so that they could work more effectively and integrate these concepts of sustainability and resilience as a department. And then we wanted to help them to align their division's goals and objectives to that updated mission, vision, values, and how to execute those shared goals. And so we wanted to overall help their leadership team improve their functioning to better serve the county in providing the normal government services that they do, but in a way that allows for improved resilience and sustainability. So our process for this training series, we started with essentially a needs assessment. We conducted interviews with the different department employees. We called it the Sustainable Organization Survey. So that survey really helped us to create a tailored training series. It was meant to be a model training series that could be adapted, but it was very customized to this particular department. So after that survey, we analyzed those results. We presented those observations and findings to the department through a summary report. And from there, we were able to move on to the other steps of the training process. So the survey that we conducted, you don't need to read this table here, but it was made up of questions that accomplished two goals. One portion of the survey assessed their familiarity with resilience and sustainability. The other portion looked at their organizational resilience and how well they achieved their goals. So next slide, Peg. What we found from this portion of the survey focused on their familiarity is that most of the department was familiar with these general concepts, but there was a wide range of knowledge expressed. A lot of people found that through doing this survey, they kind of came to know what they didn't know. We were sort of able to reveal those knowledge gaps and show them what their distribution of knowledge was throughout the department. Most everyone on the team has this long-term planning mindset, but expressed that there are barriers to actually taking action. So long-term planning was recognized as being really important to their individual roles, but as an entire department, they really suffered from being short-sighted or reactive, and they weren't able to apply the long-term planning that they knew how to do individually as a team. So this table is actually one that I was really intrigued by when I looked back at it. Thanks, Brittany. It shows the range of topics that they cover as a department. Overall, it paints a picture of a department that has worked through several repeated disasters, hurricanes, and floods, but notably, very few of them focus on communication, public health, or inequality at the time of the survey. Next slide. All right, I'm gonna move through this pretty quickly, but the main thing that I wanted to point out is that we helped the department to tie their decision-making to evidence, science-based decisions rooted in climate projections and climate data. So we had specific data downscaled to the county, and we took them through it in a way that helped them to align it with the Sustainable Development Goals. So next slide. So, we would look at a variable like heavy rainfall, really intense storms, and we would say, what Sustainable Development Goals does that impact? And we also use tools such as the NOAA Sea Level Rise Viewer that help them to visualize these future conditions and even overlap it with things like critical facilities, all the things like fire, schools, police that they interact with normally anyway.
So I think I'm going to step in here, right, Maeve?
Yes, take it away, Peg.
Okay. So I just want to spend a second on this slide because what I found really interesting in educating this group was that they really knew their particular problem set as it related to jobs roads, if they were responsible for roads or the airport or the recycling areas. But they didn't have a holistic view of what flooding and storms and sea level rise were doing to the county. And when Maeve introduced the sea level rise viewer, there were ahas around the room. People literally got on the tool and started looking at where they live, where their daughters live, where their grandchildren live, and looking at different years into the forecast. In 5 years, it's going to look like this. In 10 years, it's going to look like this. In 40 years, it's going to look like this. And it gave them an entirely new appreciation for longer term planning. And it gave them a better appreciation for the need to integrate their planning, that they really are looking at a whole system here, not just at their individual sets of responsibilities. So the second part of the survey had to do with their resilience as a team, their effectiveness as a team, and their ability as a team to withstand whatever challenges came about. So again, as Maeve said, we're not going to go into this, but we asked them 14 questions that are based on a model that was developed, I'll say, probably in the 60s by a professor at MIT who I knew named Richard Beckhart, now deceased. But it's a simple model that came about from years of observation of how teams perform and how highly effective teams perform. And it basically says this: teams that are highly effective have very clear goals, and they have such consistency in understanding each other's goals that they're able to step into each other's needs and understanding. It also gives them a long-term strategic line of sight and helps them in making sure that they're able to achieve the results that they have set out. Secondly, teams have very clear roles and responsibilities, and those roles and responsibilities are aligned with goals. The procedures are what's required to accomplish the goals in each other's roles. So things like effective meeting management, decision-making, conflict management are all really critical procedures. And then ultimately, interpersonal relationships are going to be very high if that sequence of goals, roles, and procedures are in place. So using that model, we looked at the results and we found some very interesting things about this team. First of all, they were not accomplishing their goals and were very frustrated by that. And we can see that that's because the clarity of their goals was not very high in the scheme of things. What they were really good at was doing their job, staying in their lane, taking care of roads or taking care of buildings or taking care of the particular set of responsibilities they had. They were also really good at taking care of the customer, even though sometimes it killed them to get it done. So taking care of people's needs around the county or other departments. What they were missing were really well-established decision-making and meeting management skills, and they were pretty short on tools like conflict resolution. And then finally, their energy was high, but it was really a high burnout situation. Let me just sort of get to the bottom here. What we realized was to make them a more resilient team, we had to move from sort of the classic hierarchy, which had the manager in the middle providing direction to each and every member, and get them to a place where they were more collaborative, better able to respond to the various problems that they faced in a collective way, to do more integrated strategic planning and so forth. With that understanding, when they moved into their strategic planning, they were much more effective in identifying goals that they needed to work on together.
I'm gonna, due to time constraints.
Okay, Robert.
I'm
thanks.
sorry. No, that's not a problem.
I just want to tell you that the manager won the APWA Presidential Leadership Award as the result of the work that we did with them, and we're very proud of him and that whole team. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Peg. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
This is just a reminder to everybody. Roberto is going to introduce our next participants, but we really have to keep to like the 10-minute at the very most presentation limit. So, Roberto, would you like to introduce our next speaker?
Yes, I would. Next up, we have RCE North Texas, and they'll be discussing eco patterns facing sustainability and resiliency. And that will be given by Ms. Oriana Silva. So if you're ready.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. How are you doing?
Hi.
Hi. I will share my screen right now. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Let me put this. Okay, here we go. Well, welcome to this presentation. I'm Mariana Silva. I'm representing the RCE North Texas chapter, especially the Youth Network, and I will talk about the eco-interns facing sustainability and resiliency at Dallas College. So we're a team of 3 interns composed of Dallas North Lake Campus and Brookhaven Campus sustainability interns. They are my partners, Amina Yusuf and Joy Wambua, and myself, Oriana Silva. I'm from the Brookhaven campus. So at the beginning of this year, we host our RCE International Youth Meeting in February. We try to exchange ideas with a youth ambassador around the world. We have representations from different continents, almost all of them, all the Americas, Asia, and Europe. We address different issues that concern everybody around the world. And some of them were disease management by Dallas County Health Human Service. I have to highlight that during this presentation, we addressed how to prevent COVID-19 and how people can face this disease, even though it wasn't declared as a pandemic at that time. So we educate our students and community before it happened. Then, well, we talk about sustainable social medias, how to engage students and faculty through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Climate solution projects for Brookhaven campus. We talk about the RCE Monarch project, which is with the in alliance with NASA and the Master Naturalist. We tagged Monarch butterfly last week, and so we can know if where is the path that they will follow for the next season. We talk about awareness initiatives at Fort Worth, environmental engineering that the Nimitz High School developed. Those students develop solar panels for their school. The lake cleanup initiative by the Richland campus. And also we have an international speaker, Dr. Uma Mahur. She's from India, and she talked a little bit about the health challenges that India is facing right now. It was pretty varied, this conversation. It lasts around 2.5 hours, but I know for sure many people around the world learn how things are happening, not only in the North Texas area, also in other countries. Well, before COVID, we also host activities outside our campus. We partner with Dallas Arboretum and the Green Team Coalition. We went to the Dallas Arboretum and we got a guided visit where we learned about plants and environment. We also did cleanup with the Green Team Coalition and our creeks next to the Brookhaven campus. And well, as you know, Earth Day was coming on April 22nd. So since it was the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, we host an event 50 years for 50 days. So this campaign starts on March 3rd and it ends Earth Day. So basically, we try to host many activities online and in person where students, faculty, staff, and people from the community could engage and learn a little bit more about environment, society, and economy as well, and what is art, you know. This was an activity that we host at Brookhaven. It was an eco workshop for elementary and middle school students from the Farmers Branch and Carton ISD. These kids went to our campus to learn a little bit more about how to recycle and the importance of not throwing away the food. This is an issue that is pretty common in the United States, that we see many students that they don't have the time now to eat their lunch or their breakfast during the school time, and they mostly throw away the food. And so basically we talk like, you can recycle this thing from your lunch pack, and you can also save this food and all that stuff to raise awareness about the other students that don't have food or don't have the facility to have alimentation. Okay. So before spring break, if you know, March 13, we declared that COVID-19 was a pandemic and all the classes went online. So that week, on March 10th, we held a safe spring break fair. And this fair, we talk about how to reduce the plastic during our vacations and how to be eco in spring break. It was pretty good. We talked with students, we talked about sustainability. We have giveaway, as you see, we have a wheel here of prizes. So people were very engaged with our activities. So Therefore, after we went online, it was a challenge how to keep the community engaged with sustainability with the Earth Day, with our 50 day, 50 years campaign. And so we create a student journal. This student journal is the first sustainable journal funded by Dallas College students for students. It started in April as a Word document, and then we developed then through MailChimp, and now we have a website where you can be able to see our contents, articles, and you can subscribe to our journal. So this student-led journal provides an environment for students to develop academic research concerning different areas like social justice, human health, and well-being, philosophy, science, technology, engineering, and math, climate action, and business. So basically, the mission and vision of this journal is engage students from different majors, and not only from Dallas College, also from the area of North Texas. And so they can express their concerns, their knowledge, their research, because most of them have done research before, and some topics that aren't hitting right now around the world. So you can see here, we have three main categories: society, environment, and economy, that are the three main branches of sustainability. So each time you click on there, you can see different articles for each category. Well, other activities that we have done during this pandemic time was the iNaturalist competition. This competition was hosted by my colleague Joy Wambua, where people not only from Dallas College, also around the world, uh, compete with the picture. So the the main reason of this is like we are all at home, seated and closed, and this promotes that you can take a walk. You don't need to go to a crowded place to discover animals or plants or bugs. So you can just take a walk around your neighborhood and discover many amazing things. So this competition was made for that. Go to walk, try to be healthy, and then discover and learn what are you seeing during those walks. So this competition was a success. It has around 17,000 observations, 3,000 species identified, 1,000 identifiers, and 36 observers. So observers were the people that actually sign up and were doing that weekly. So we had like weekly, like, okay, this week will be supposed to just for plants, this week for bugs or birds. So we did that per category. And it lasts from July 1st to August 31st through all the summer. And now they're hosting another for fall.
If you want to make your closing comments, Oriana.
Okay, I will just, these are the social medias, the Twitter, um, Instagram. You can see here the competitions, the videos. Also, here is the other Sustainable North Lake. We also have videos about how to grow vegetables and fruits at home in partnership with Dallas Arboretum. I encourage you all to see that because it's a good activity that you can do at home. We work with the SDG Action Manager Performance. This is a tool. I highly recommend you. It can help you to improve your performance at your university or college.
Thank you,
And well,
Oriana.
also we do gardening in the community, in our community college. We have the Women Garden, which is a pollinator garden with native species. And well, we found a lot of monarch butterflies there. And we have the Romero Garden, which is a vegetable garden at North Lake campus. Well, thank you so much. This is my contact information. I hope you like my presentation and have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Sorry, we just need to maintain the schedule. I hate to be that guy, but up next we have RCE Grand Rapids, and we'll be learning from Gail and her update.
Good evening and welcome and greetings from RCE Grand Rapids. I will be presenting tonight with my colleague Eric Nordman. I'm going to try to do a very quick 3 minutes. My timer is on. We are hailing from Grand Rapids, Michigan in the United States. I brought for you a map. Our spot is this little star. We are home to 20% of the world's fresh water, and we're very careful to understand that. And so we spend much time thinking about it. I'm going to hopefully know how to move this slide forward, and it's not moving. Let's go. I want to start with a thank you too. Our last meeting was at Shelburne Farms, and that has sustained me, and I'm sure many of us, throughout the year. And I want to say a grateful thank you to all that participated in making that such an amazing and informative and important time last year, and some memories from that time. So greetings to you, and thank you again for that important experience. I'm going to spend some time talking about some of the informal and formal educational opportunities we've been doing in Grand Rapids, and I'm going to try to think forward more than backward. But I do want to mention that I left Shelburne Farms and came running back to Grand Rapids a tad early so that I could be participating in a group conversation with Paul Hawken, as he was keynote to a conversation in Grand Rapids, bringing us together to talk about how we might think about our climate action planning. It was hosted by our West Michigan U.S. Green Building Council, who also supports our Michigan Battle of the Buildings and Grand Rapids 2030 District, where we collaborate together to try to look at our impact on climate through energy reduction. We started our RCE in 2007. We were acknowledged in 2007, primarily through a community sustainability partnership with business, education, and government. It was designated to the city. That collaboration is being reimagined into a new community collaboration on climate change. This community sustainability reimagination is looking more deeply at integrating all aspects of our community with a stronger network on social justice and social equity. Moving forward, we are hopeful again, without any government lockdowns, to host our youth virtual conference. It will be our 5th, so please watch for more information on that. We are hosting the 8th annual WEGI Prize, which is another opportunity to connect our youth to an important and interesting transdisciplinary and intercollegiate opportunity to solve wicked problems. So I hope that you look for that information soon. And our universities have collaborated across 15 colleges and universities to host a Earth Day 50.5 next week on the 22nd. Because of our COVID lockdown in April, we weren't able to host Earth Days. So you're all invited, and I will share that information again on our slide deck that is going to be available. You may all participate with us. And now I want to turn over the rest of my time to Eric Nordman, who's going to share his important research in St. Vincent, the Grenadines. Now I'm going to stop so Eric can jump in.
Thank you very much, Gail. There we go. Okay, share. There we go. All right. Yeah, so this was a project that I did with students at Grand Valley and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Caribbean. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines is vulnerable to many hazards. First of all, it's a long way from Grand Rapids for sure. So this was an interesting project. But climate change is adding to the list. Storms and coastal damage, landslides, coastal erosion, earthquakes and volcanoes. It's a small country, but it's very hazard prone. So I worked with the Pan American Development Foundation to create a curriculum to train young adults in disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. And we built this curriculum, and then I handed the curriculum off to my partners in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Christabel Ashton was the main one. And we trained 163 young adults in all kinds of techniques in community sustainability and resiliency techniques. And then back in Grand Rapids, I was teaching a geographic information systems class, and we used that information from St. Vincent, the island itself, St. Vincent, to create a landslide risk model. And landslides are one of the main hazards, especially in the interior of the country. And it's really harmful to, there's a lot of farming on steep slopes. There's infrastructure damage. So understanding where the most vulnerable sites are can reduce that risk and hopefully even save lives. So that is my presentation. So it was a really interesting collaboration between folks here in Grand Rapids and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So thanks a lot for this opportunity to share our work. And thanks, Gail.
Thanks, Eric and Gail. Up next, we have RCE Greater Burlington. And for that one, we will be hearing from Ms. Jen Cerullo.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks, Gail, for the shout out. So nice to have you all in Vermont last year. I'm really excited to be sharing with you a little bit about some of the work that the RCE Greater Burlington is doing. And some of you saw last night the collaboration with Puerto Rico, and there's lots of local collaborations as well we're really excited about. So what I wanted to share with you tonight with my co-presenters, Sophia and Kieran, is a little bit about the Sustainable Development Goals and youth engagement. And so Sophia and Kieran in a moment are going to join me. But I wanted to just say that youth voice, place-based learning, EFS, and the Sustainable Development Goals are really foundational to the education that we're doing here in Vermont. And we have 4 different ways that we've been engaging youth in the Sustainable Development Goals and really thinking about what does it look like to learn, to teach and learn for a more just, healthy, and sustainable world. So some of the activities have included engaging in a Global Goals Week, the Burlington City and Lake Semester, which Sophia and Kieran will share with you. As many of you who were with us last year got to meet students that are part of cultivating pathways to sustainability. And then finally, just a brief moment, if we have time, to share about our professional learning programs that really are supporting educators and thinking about, well, how do I support youth voice, place-based learning, and education for sustainability? So this year, the University of Vermont and Shelburne Farms, along with many other local partners, hosted Global Goals Week. And so this was a statewide and university-wide activities. And one of the activities that young people engaged in, really deepening their understanding of place, was to investigate the place with the lens of the Sustainable Development Goals, and really looking to see how do we compare to other cities of our size. Burlington's a city of about 42,000 folks, and so looking at other cities that are in the same range, how do we compare on education, on clean water and sanitation, gender equality, and really having young people think about what can we do to improve how we're doing on these Sustainable Development Goals in relation to other communities of our size. So this was a semester-based project, and they just were able to share that in September. The other program that I'm really excited to share is a semester-based program And Sophia and Kieran, I'll have you unmute yourselves and just share so that folks can hear directly from the students that are in this program now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Hi everyone. My name is Kieran Blakeney, and I'm a junior at Burlington High School. Burlington City Lake program is many things, but at its core, it's an immersive learning experience in the city of Burlington. It gives students a strong sense of place while learning about social justice and sustainability. I took the Burlington City Lake program because I was bored of traditional classroom learning, and I wanted real world experience. Excuse me. BCL has given this to me. Its unique curriculum has allowed us to talk with community leaders and activists on racial justice, sustainability, and city systems. Currently, we are creating a student-led video about racial injustice in Burlington, where we are interviewing government officials. BCL's sense of community and special curriculum has brought me closer with the city and the world. I really enjoyed the hands-on learning and the real-world experience it offers.
Thanks, Kieran. And Sophia.
Yeah, well, hello, I'm Sophia. I'm a junior at Burlington High School. I'm doing Burlington City Lake because of the opportunities and resources provided to us. I found it benefiting me with, again, how small the course was. I found myself taking all the skills I learned in BCL into my everyday life. I think it's quite unique that we're allowed to have uncomfortable conversations, and we broke those barriers so quickly. I think BCL really allowed me to grow and improve as a person and my mindset with like education, especially when learning about systems such as sustainability and housing and transportation. Those aren't really stuff we learn with traditional school.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophia. It's so much better to hear from the students than to hear from me, but I'm so pleased that they could join us. You'll see in our presentation in the slides too, there's some links to their blogs, and hopefully that video that will get posted soon. I'm really excited about that. I think unique to the Burlington City and Lake semester program really is youth voice and that deep connection to place. The third program, just to briefly share with you, is the Cultivating Pathways to Sustainability. And thanks to Philip and Nancy, we were able to write this project up in a recent RCE publication. So thank you for that support, Philip. And Nancy, if you're on. This program, when we went virtual last year, students were still really excited to continue to engage in community-based projects, and even in the virtual context, they were still reaching out to community partners and working to address the sustainable development goals in their community. And we began this year again also in a virtual context, but because we're virtual and we're not necessarily meeting in person, we were able to include students from further afield. And so this year we're excited to welcome students from community in Nepal, at the Coppola Valley School, boarding school in Mississippi, Piney Woods School, as well as some regional partners, really helping the students broaden their sense of what is a sustainable community, youth voice and network, and to have young people really work across the globe to address big issues. You heard Sophia and Kieran talk about injustice, and the Black Lives Matter movement has been really strong here in Vermont, but also for young people to hear about how students in Nepal are also concerned, and standing in solidarity has been a really powerful moment for all of the students. And I'll end with sort of what I'm passionate about, which is teacher education. We know that students don't have the opportunities to engage with the sustainable development goals if their teachers are not familiar with it and if it's not coming into the classroom. And so we continue to provide support. Shelburne Farms and UVM are working to develop a graduate certificate in education for sustainability with the sustainable development goals as a core component. All of our courses really align nicely with the goals. And we continue to provide resources to support educators here in Vermont, but as well internationally. So I think we'll end there. Thank you so much for having us tonight. And thanks so much to Kieran and Sophia for taking their time tonight with me.
Thank you so much, Jen. It was so good to see you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. We're going to move ahead to our next presentation, RCE Saskatchewan, with Mr. Jonathan Yee. His presentation is The Right Color Blue.
I'm just trying to share my screen. How do we do this?
I also have your presentation just in case, too.
Good. Looks like, is it working?
Looks great. Yeah, we can
Okay.
see it. Looks really
Right.
good quality.
My name is John Yee. I'm with RCE Saskatchewan. I've been with them since 2009, on and off. And most recently, after I came back from a trip from Lebanon working with refugees, I thought that it would be cool to incorporate the SDGs and refugees together. So what I did was I partnered with my cousins who are artists and an amateur writer, and we created a children's book about refugees and the SDGs. What we found out was that education has fallen behind in today's issues, and we need to focus more on informal and non-formal education because these topics are becoming really politicalized, and to get this information to the public easier, we should veer away from political talking points, I guess. And so that's why a children's book. So the problem is that a lot of textbooks in education still are not up to date, and there's stereotypical images of migration and migrants being taught. So the opportunity that we researched was from UNICEF, and that children's books do help, and we need to get relevant information to children and teachers. I'm going over these slides really fast. You guys can read it after because they'll be online. So why a children's book? Because it gives moralistic, simple, and educational information to the public. And it's important to have access to SDG content when you're young. And it's a great way for scaffolding to teach the public. So what is this book about? So we can title it The Right Color Blue. Focuses on immigration and utilizes conventional adventure and transformational plot elements with a rhyming scheme. The rhyming scheme is easier to understand and remember information. And the way we use it is basically how fairy tales and movies and other TV shows use storytelling. So we took into consideration the benefit of a host country and the benefits of why immigration is important to the host country. And we identified three major topics, which is productivity, innovation, and tax collection. And we incorporated that into the book. So the key concepts was resistance to immigration. So the main characters are clouds. And in the group, the clouds in the group will only take the color blue and actively discriminate against other colors clouds who use them. So basically what happens is, in the story, the clouds are in a valley. Because of climate change, water is getting, the lake is drying up, and they need to search for more water. But I guess, I'm not sure if it's racist or whatever, they don't like other color of water, and they only like a certain color of blue. And so the main character needs to go outside of their comfort zone and find new fresh water to survive. Another one is methods of combating resistance. So it's understanding other cultures and why the benefit of other cultures are beneficial to a host country. And the moral is to be able to shift acceptance to others. How did we come up with all these learning things? We used the learning objectives from UNESCO's Education for Sustainable Development Goals learning objectives, which focuses on cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral outcomes. So in the framework, there's a bunch of different cognitive, social, and behavioral learnings that is recommended. So we picked the three here that we thought was most important to the book. So the learner understands the inequality is a major driver for societal problems and individual dissatisfaction. Socio-emotional learning objectives, the learner is able to raise awareness about inequalities in their own worlds. And the behavioral learning objectives, the learning is able to identify and analyze different types of causes and reasons for inequalities. And so through those, we created more other learnings within those learnings, I guess. And so, and this is only a few of them in the book that I picked. The shrink of the puddle that I talked about, climate change is causing shrinking, the main source of food, the hate of colored water, the rejection of discrimination, immigration, immigrants, and the rejection of Taylor. Because Taylor returns from his journey to save his friends, but he's changed and is not accepted by some of them, but accepted by some others. The socio-emotional learning objectives, learner is able to learn about the method of identifying inequalities, the exploration outside of your own context, question your own context, interacting with outside knowledge. And this is an example of stories raising awareness through verbal communication to a large group of peers. So being able to translate what they learned in the book into the real world. And our behavioral learning objective is to discover the inequality of the group through exploration outside of the group dynamic and conversations with others. One of the prevailing reasons people find it difficult to raise awareness of inequalities is their inability to identify them in the first place as they live within their own context. So we hope this book helps them discover and reach out of their own little bubble to see the benefits of others. And final slide, this is just an example of the text. So this is or I guess, each rectangle is 2 pages, and there's a little bit of the art of what the book looks like. And done. Thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan. That was awesome. Up next, we have RCE Bogota, and we have Dr. Paez.
Hello, good afternoon. So I'm
hello.
Put the presentation.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here. Okay, we're going to present to you the results that we have had from our project that we present 3 years ago in Vancouver. So it's really nice to be here sharing with you the results that we have had these past 3 years. I'm going to introduce Marcela Rodriguez. She's one of our young leaders, and she's going to start our presentation. So, Marcela.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Marcela Rodriguez, member of this project. So I want to talk to you about today is youth as an engine to promote sustainable lifestyles in Colombia. So who are we? We are a movement promoted by young leaders from different universities. We are students and graduates from different universities and professions trained in sustainable lifestyles and SDGs as well. We spread a message of sustainability to communities here in Colombia in different cities, making visible those initiatives and companies that are committed to the environment to create sustainable cities and communities. So our main goal is to promote the adoption of sustainable lifestyles to train informed and responsible consumers. We think that information is really important so that people could become a responsible consumer, that with their daily actions could help reduce environmental impacts associated with our lifestyles to create more sustainable cities. So our numbers since 2018, we have been in more than 50 events. We have reached more than 3,000 people in events and 23,000 followers on social networks. We think social networks are really important in order to connect to youth nowadays. We have made alliances with more than 50 organizations that help us spread the message throughout the country. We have this group of 34 young leaders. They are the base of our project. They help us spread the message. They are here with us in every event, and now with COVID, we continue working with them virtually. We also work with sustainable brands, different brands that help us to achieve the adoption of these sustainable lifestyles. We know that lifestyles are divided in 5 domains that are food, mobility, housing, leisure, and consumer goods. So these brands help us in that way to promote local consumption and promote also local communities and entrepreneurships. We have different allies. We started working with UN Environment at first with the program One Planet Live with Care. Now we continue working with different allies such as the Swiss Embassy in Colombia, the Ministry of Environmental and Sustainable Development here in Colombia as well, and different organizations that are part of the ministry, and also RCE as our main ally in the development of this project. So these are our social networks. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, a website, also a YouTube channel, and a podcast channel. So I'm going to show you really quickly our 2018 results, where we worked with the UN Environment on sustainable lifestyles adoption. So what I'm going to talk to you about here is that in this year, we had 25 events. We reached more than 1,000 people in events and 7,000 people on social networks. We also did a first course for young leaders on sustainability and sustainable lifestyles. Here you can see some pictures of our work in different events throughout the year, mainly in the city of Bogota, that is the capital of Colombia. So as part of the indicators that show us the measurements of the impact of the project, we have had qualitative and quantitative indicators such as surveys and the calculation of the carbon footprint. So to show you really quickly our main results, we calculated the carbon footprint of mobility of 5 different types of means of transportation here in the city of Bogota. And what we did is that with the actions that we promoted on sustainable lifestyles, we could see a reduction in the use of the car. Also in food, we analyzed different types of food, such as beef, chicken, pork, and rice. And we also promoted different actions to reduce this footprint. And this showed a really good results. So finally, I'm gonna talk to you about some conclusions that we achieved in this project in terms of each of the domains of the sustainable lifestyles. First, we showed how the project has enabled youth to mobilize in a more sustainable way. More infrastructure and enabling conditions are needed to people here in Bogota and in all Colombia to adopt these sustainable lifestyles. Also in terms of food, our participants were able to change the way they feed and understand that environmental impacts associated with food and packaging. And also in terms of consumer goods, people have shown how they became more aware about the way they buy and acquire goods. More emphasis should be made in some actions such as purchasing used goods and other terms of practicing these sustainable lifestyles in terms of buying. In the terms of leisure, we must achieve more actions that promote sustainable tourism and in addition of low carbon celebrations. And in terms of housing, we have to promote more the terms of saving water and energy, and different actions such as composting and home gardening must be promoted, given that these actions involve more work. So sometimes are a barrier so that young people could promote them and take them into their lifestyles. So I'm going to leave you with Diana. She is going to talk to you about our results in 2019 and 2020.
Okay, thank you, Marcela. Okay, I'm going to tell you the results, like Marcela said. One of the most important things of the last year was that we could replicate the sustainability course for young leaders. We also made new alliances. Also, other thing that it was really important is that we wanted to have a tool to engage more people when we have these events. The one that we can see each other before the pandemic. So one of our results are the Enmol Action Games This is a set of 5 games. We have a twister, a smarty, a puzzle, a ladder, and a game of virtual water. And what we wanted is that people learn a little more about sustainable lifestyles, but also to have fun while they were doing that. So we have been in universities, schools, also some companies also called us to give some talks to the people that work with them. Other important thing in this year was the alliance that we made with Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation. With this alliance, we wanted to inform and promote actions on sustainable lifestyles, emphasizing on water footprint reduction actions, and also we also wanted to work with the SDGs. And in this case, we decided to work with the good life goals. We love when in 2018 they said, okay, the SDGs is no more like this thing that is about something at a political level and in the company level. It's also a thing that the people have to talk about it and that can do something about it. So we really like to play with the good life goals. Some of the result of the campaign of the last year, it was that we have some events, we made new alliances. These are some of the pieces that we use. Like Marcela says, one of our main work is in social networks, is the way that we engage with people. And these are some of the pieces. We like to give information, but not only information, but we would like to always also give the people like the way, like alternatives. So that's why we have these entrepreneurs that we work with. And something important is the memes. We all realize that the idea is not what you said, but how you said it. So we try to set the things in a really fun way so that people can feel connected with what we wanted them to know. In this year, we have continued to work with the Swiss Embassy and also with another universities. And some of the important things is that the pandemic didn't stop us. For example, the virtuality has helped us to reach a lot of people that it is not the same. For example, we have reached like 3,000 people in like 3 years of work, but in 5 months, thanks to the virtuality, we have more than 1,000 participants, so that's really cool for us. We have new publications. In this moment, we have a 34-year-old young leaders group, and they have really helpful with all the information we want to share with the people. We also have made new alliances. We also have made contests, and in this moment, we're working with a set of workshops about different themes. We want to share with you some of our publications. Like you can see, they are fun. They try to give information really in a really appealing way so that people can feel connected to them, so they can learn, and not only learn or be informed, but also what they can do. So we gave also options. And we also have done contests. I'm sorry. I have this alarm.
I'm really
so I
sorry.
think that my time is over, but okay, I want to finish. We have made some contests. We also have made these workshops about composting, about sustainable menstruation, about sustainable mobility, about leisure, and some of the events that we have made over these times are a regional forum. We have shared experience with Chile, Peru, with Mexico. We also made the forum that these are one of the main activities of RCE Bogota. And last but not least are like the networks that we work on. And it's a really great indicator for us because we can see how many people follow us, and sorry, but this one is at least. And we can see how many people are following us, how they interact, how many people we can reach. And okay, just to end, we're going to continue working for sustainability. And here you can find our social networks. Like Marcela told you, we have a website. We also have a YouTube channel, a podcast. Everything is in Spanish, we know that, but you're welcome to follow us and to see all the things that we have been doing the last 3 years.
Gracias. Muy interesante.
De acuerdo. Muchísimas gracias, and please share all of your social media links in the chat box too.
Perfect. We'll do it.
I'm going to be moving on to RCE Peterborough, Kawartha, Halliburton, and we have with us Miss Jane Gray, Miss Dorothy Taylor, and Miss Ashley Safar. So would you all like to, oh, actually, I've got your video. I am in charge of that. So I'm going to be sharing your video right now. Here it comes. Okay.
Thank you.
Here we go, share computer. Sound, Kim Smith taught me that yesterday. Okay, and here we go. Okay, everyone, I'm gonna start playing the video. Feel free to interrupt me. I'm turning up my computer volume on the loudest that I can go. And interrupt me if it sounds a little bit quiet or anything. Okay, here we go.
Nindagnak Nimki Kapaneshi Kwandishnakas Wapagag Dodem. My name is Dorothy Taylor, and I'm from Curve Lake First Nation, and I introduced myself in the language of the Mississauga Ojibwe. We are pleased to present to you our research from the RCE Kawartha entitled UNESCO Research on Indigenous Education. Our website is at the bottom of this slide, RCE Kawartha, if you want to know more about us. We are going to focus on particularly two programs that we believe best represent Indigenous-led education, and that is Bishka Program Fleming College and Braided Healing with Learning First Nation Technical Institute. I'd like to introduce my fellow presenters. This is Ashley Safar. She's the manager of Indigenous Student Services at Fleming College, and she implements the Bishka program, and she'll be presenting that part of our research. Also, we have Jane Gray. She is a student at Trent University here in Peterborough, Ontario, and a PhD student and a teacher. And she's also the author of this research entitled UNESCO Research on Indigenous Education. Jane.
So our RCE's #1 long-term objective has been to recognize the vital importance of Indigenous knowledge systems across curricula. So this research project is building on Trent's Channing Wenjack School for Indigenous Studies. They were also a partner in this research. The school has been around for 50 years. It was the first Indigenous Studies department in Canada. It has really led the way in bringing Indigenous pedagogies to the fore, land-based learning, experiential learning, bringing language and culture to programs across the university, including education, environment, and business. And now there's a mandatory course credit in Indigenous studies for all disciplines. Within that department is also Indigenous Environmental Studies and Sciences, which is also the first of its kind in North America. TRACS program for younger students, another first out of Trent University. Of course, Fleming College, Indigenous Perspectives and Indigenous Student Services, and we'll hear more about that from Ashley. We have some amazing community organizations, the Sacred Water Circle, working with the land between, and the Water Walkers, who are a beautiful organization inspired by Grandmother Josephine Mandamin. We have some unique initiatives with Trent business students engaging with Indigenous knowledges and communities, Kawartha World Issues Center, Indigenous Youth Leadership, and these are just a snapshot of all of the things that are going on to support our #1 objective. But the first, of course, we're going to focus on is the Bishka program.
Thanks, Jane. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Bishka program. Bishka is Anishinaabe for Rise Up, and it's a program that supports first-year Indigenous students transitioning into Fleming College. So Bishka runs as a peer mentorship program, and we really focus on holistic health and well-being in terms of support to encourage student success in their post-secondary journeys. And so we try to ensure that students' emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual needs are met. So the Bishka program specifically is centered around students developing peer relationships as the foundation to their post-secondary journey and experience. So it begins with an orientation just before school starts, which provides some leadership opportunities for the peer mentors, as well as an opportunity for new students to learn about supports and resources and really build that foundational knowledge of Ngojuadong and the new area that they're now in. So we accomplished this by culturally centered workshops and programming, which includes visits from local elders and traditional knowledge holders, and that continues throughout the academic year. And so new students are continuously supported by staff in Indigenous Student Services, as well as the student peer mentors as they experience their first year in post-secondary education. So some of the outcomes, the effectiveness and outcomes of the Bishka program is that we've seen 100% retention rates for students who participate in the program, as well as 100% graduation rates for students participating. There's opportunities for development of leadership skills. Many mentors actually go on to, many mentees actually go on to become mentors, and they speak to their experience and what it meant to them in their transition to post-secondary. And so seeing them come full circle and then want to be mentors and leaders in the Fleming community is really, really great to be able to see firsthand. There's also an engagement with Indigenous teachings. This helps to ensure students have a deeper understanding of the natural world, cultural history, perspectives, as well as a better understanding of sustainability issues. And the focus is locally, but does expand because we do have students coming from a variety of communities across the province and sometimes across Canada. Many students also experience, a strengthening of cultural sustainability and knowledge. Many students coming to post-secondary are often in a transition time in their lives where they're learning more about their cultural identities, and it's a really great opportunity for students to start that process. They tend to share their experiences and understanding with their family and friends and peers as well. So it creates that growth mindset and opening of perspectives and understandings in the community as a whole, and in a variety of communities based on where that student is coming from. And then there's that achievement of a community within a community. So we like to think of ourselves as a community at Fleming as a whole, as being an inclusive environment to support all students. And the Bishka program really creates that smaller community within that larger community. And so I just wanted to end with a quick quote from one of the mentees in the program. And so he explains it as giving a sense of being in a family. It really gives you a sense that you're a part of something bigger. And so that was really impactful to hear students say that of their experience. And he had also said that he felt he had radical acceptance there and that there wasn't judgment. It was a place where he could all be himself, a place that would accept you for who you are. And so it's just amazing to see those outcomes, both in the statistics of how, the success of the program, but also students' experiences from that, the other side of their being. And so again, bringing it back to that emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual self. So I'm glad I was able to share some of that with you, and we'll pass it back to Jane.
Well, the other partner in this research project was the First Nations Technical Institute, and a really unique approach to learning, braided healing with learning that builds on or picks up on that holistic approach to learning. FNTI works directly with communities to identify employment needs. And so as one of their vice presidents, Adam Hopkins, says, they'll go into a community and they might say, we need 15 social workers. And so they go right within the community to train people. And the way they do it is with intensive week-long sessions that are offered once per month over a 2-year period. And that allows students to stay right within their communities, to maintain their family responsibilities, their community responsibilities. And that has a particular benefit for women who often can't leave their communities to go to school. And the really amazing part of it, the braided healing with learning, brings elders, instructors, and student success workers all together within the classroom to support that personal growth of the student, that holistic well-being that Ashley talked about. And that is really a key to their academic success. So they really bring together Western curriculum with Indigenous teachings. And as a result, they have a 94 to 96% graduation rate. And I too would like to just offer a quote from one of the students, Kristen, who said, "It's incorporating learning in a circle. It's incorporating ceremony to get you in the mindset of learning. It's incorporating all this knowledge, not just from the instructor, but also ancestral knowledge." And one of the people who's had a vast experience with all 3 institutions, Dan Longboat, wanted us to emphasize that it's these 3 institutions, the college, the institute, and the university together, that provide amazing holistic pathways, not just for Indigenous students, but for all students. And so Elder Dorothy is going to close with a quote from Professor Longboat that sums up a lot of this research.
Right, yes. And as you can, as you have seen demonstrated, that it's Indigenous-led, culturally significant components in a successful education that we have witnessed in those 2 amazing programs. So Dan Longboat is the director of the Indigenous Environmental Studies program at Trent University, and he's highly regarded elder and faith keeper. So his quote goes, you know, when you are training one person, they are connected to a family, connected to an extended family, connected to a community, connected to a nation. That's a smart investment. By looking at the elements of education, you're never going to get to have a fully functional citizen within the nation until you address the necessary part of healing. Our history with the West has created tremendous intergenerational trauma that Indigenous learners are carrying today. You can't just provide them with a few books and read an essay to write. It's much deeper than that. That's where the cultural-based education comes in, and that's the foundation for change. The introduction of that within Indigenous pedagogy is life-changing for all learners, be they Indigenous or not. Miigwech Kinawag for listening to our presentation today. And we just wanted to put this next slide up because it gives, it's just an outline of the credits of who we had worked together with on this research project. And we like to say Miigwech very much. Miigwech.
Thank you so much. You know, Jane, Dorothy, and Ashley, we're actually going to be taking a 5-minute break right now. We'll be coming back at 7:24, and Roberta will be introducing our next speaker. But Jane, Dorothy, and Ashley, if you'd like to say a few words while everybody's taking their break, feel free to go ahead. I'll see everybody at 7:24, so feel free to stretch your legs or anything, arms, whatever. And I'll also be here during the break. I'm not going anywhere. So. And also, I'd like to say, thank you so much for Dr. Chris Egan and Dr. Martin Perryboom from Salisbury University's Fulton School of Liberal Arts for joining us tonight. So, thank you. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi. Hi. There was a question in the comments that asked if we could get our video translated somehow into Spanish, I guess. Yeah, if that's, I don't know if we could do that possibly, Jane or Ashley.
We could do it at RCE Salisbury if you want.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yep. I'm Brittany's unofficial translator.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
We can do Italian, English, Spanish, Portuguese. I speak Quechua.
Oh, you do? Wow, that's amazing.
We can do French. What else, Brian?
Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic,
a
little bit of
German, Korean, Japanese.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, maybe if the RCEs from South America may want a copy of our video, they're welcome to it, I would think, and translated if at all possible.
It's so well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Well, kudos goes to Ashley, who's on our team here, and she's with the Bishka program. She's done the bulk of the work, and with Jane doing the research, really.
Cool. Yeah, we're partnering with a variety of Native American communities in the greater Portland region, so I definitely want to share it with them.
I see. Okay,
Yeah,
fabulous. Go ahead. If you wanted to send your if you want a copy of our video, or maybe a contact, you know, it would be good to maybe with Ashley Safar or Jane Gray of our RCE.
Cool.
Also, hi, Dr. Thomas Boudreau. Hi, Dr. Jacques Coco. Hi, Dr. Keitha. Thank you so much for joining us.
Tom, excuse me, all the presentations are together in a drive, and I'll get you access to it so you can see that one, okay? Dr. Boudreau, I'm talking to you. That Tom. Okay? Tom, we got the same thing as last night. I'm reading your lips.
I'm trying to type a message to Brittany to see if we can get a copy of the last presentation plus the video. And I was giving my greetings to the clan mother as well, and to thank her for the presentation.
I'll give you
From our theater folks, the suggestion that this chapter of our memoirs will be entitled, "You're Still on Mute."
You clearly have an awesome team at RCE Salisbury. Huge congrats to all of you for hosting and doing such a good job. Obviously, there's lots and lots of stories, and it's hard to keep it within our time frames, but huge props to you.
Miigwech.
I miss you, Kim.
Well, and I'd like
This
to.
last session made me homesick for my native Ontario. Cheers.
I'd also like to explain to Oriana that Roberto was like that to me, and I was his professor. So he's tough even on his professors. Roberto, we got to talk after this.
Oh, it's been a while, Tom. Hope you're doing well.
That's what I mean. It's been too long.
I know.
Roberto.
You catch up.
You're still a tough timekeeper, I can see.
I know.
No, he's got to keep on it, man. Hey.
He kept on me, yeah, so. Good job.
You ready to go?
Yep, 7:24. Roberto, would you like to do the first introduction?
Oh, yeah. Up next, we have RCE Lima Callao, and we will have Teresa.
Teresa, are you there? She must still be on break. Let me double check. If not, we can just move on to the next presentation, come back to Teresa. It says Teresa's here. Teresa, can you hear us?
Good afternoon, dear friends of RCE of America. I am glad to see you fine. Greetings for RCE Lima Callao from Peru. My presentation is written in English. I am speak in Spanish. Un aspecto muy importante para lograr una educación para el desarrollo sostenible es pensar cómo pensamos el mundo. Uno de los grandes problemas para lograr la sostenibilidad viene de los modelos mentales con los cuales nosotros interpretamos la realidad, actuamos en ella e interactuamos a nivel individual, a nivel social y en nuestra relación con la naturaleza. La separación de la educación y las experiencias de vida fue un reto en el siglo XX. Y sigue siendo, pero en el siglo XXI, con la situación que estamos viviendo, es una necesidad fundamental. Necesitamos entender la condición humana, necesitamos una identidad con los seres humanos y una identidad con la tierra para la vida sostenible. Necesitamos una metamorfosis de la conciencia para la sostenibilidad. Nosotros en el RCE Lima Callao trabajamos varias líneas. Trabajamos por los residuos sólidos, por mejorar la percepción del cambio climático, estamos articulados en la red de universidades del Ministerio del Ambiente, pero tenemos dos líneas epistémicas de trabajo en cuanto al conocimiento. Trabajamos articulando el conocimiento occidental, que nos ha traído muchas cosas buenas, pero hay muchas que replantear, y el conocimiento intercultural, el conocimiento de las comunidades nativas, de las comunidades indígenas, tal como manifestó la colega que nos había anticipado. En Perú hemos enfrentado el problema de la pandemia muy fuertemente. Y eso es porque son sociedades que no están preparadas para enfrentar las incertidumbres y las emergencias. Al inicio de la pandemia, Perú tomó buenas decisiones en cuanto a tratar de evitar las aglomeraciones sociales, porque no había una sostenibilidad en los hospitales. Sin embargo, la informalidad de la vida, la falta de trabajo, emergieron una serie de problemas. Cerca de 80.000 muertos y lo que se llamó el éxodo del hambre, porque al desaparecer muchas organizaciones que daban trabajo diariamente en la ciudad de Lima, cantidades de gente no tenían cómo sobrevivir. Y entonces estas comunidades giraron hacia sus orígenes, se fueron hacia las comunidades internas, hacia sus pueblos, donde estaban seguros que los iban a recibir. Edgar Morin, en el marco del fin de siglo, del siglo XX, a pedido de la UNESCO, entre otros científicos, presentaron este libro que se llama Los 7 saberes de la educación del futuro, donde fundamentalmente hace un llamado a la conciencia para trabajar desde la educación ciertos valores que puedan servir de marcos para interpretar la realidad, para interpretarnos y para interactuar en conjunto. Hay que revisar lo que entendemos por conocimientos pertinentes, la ceguera del conocimiento, la condición humana, la ética del género humano, enseñar la comprensión. Son aspectos fundamentales que a la luz de lo que está viviendo la humanidad con esta pandemia de características globales, son fundamentales. Junto a estos valores que nos tienen que servir para hacer una metamorfosis de la conciencia, también están los valores propios que hay en nuestras sociedades, que son los conocimientos interculturales, ¿no? El ser humano es un ser multidimensional, biológico, físico, social, afectivo, ¿no? Entonces nuestra racionalidad está más en función del tener que del ser. Y desde la educación para el desarrollo sostenible tenemos que reivindicar esta perspectiva. Es necesario promover una transformación individual, replantear nuestra forma de ver el mundo como individuos, una metamorfosis social y una metamorfosis en nuestra relación con la naturaleza. En este sentido, nosotros venimos articulando diversas tradiciones de los saberes. Nosotros tenemos un legado muy hermoso de la civilización andino-amazónica que se basa en las comunidades indígenas, en la reciprocidad, en la ayuda mutua, en la solidaridad, en la protección de la familia, y son valores fundamentales. Imagínense toda la gente que en Lima se vio sin trabajo, inmediatamente pensó que podían, como ellos dicen, podían ser abrigados por sus familias en sus comunidades. Era el único lugar que les quedaba. Por eso iniciaron marchas. Se fueron a pie hacia sus lugares de orígenes, ¿no? Y es por esa costumbre de la ayuda mutua, de enfrentar juntos las incertidumbres que hemos perdido en las ciudades. Porque es muy difícil que en una ciudad uno pueda de pronto recibir otra familia en su casa, casi imposible, ¿no? Pero en las comunidades sí, porque ellos tienen otra forma de interrelacionarse. Aquí vemos nosotros, para enfrentar el tema de la alimentación, que es un problema muy grave en Perú, con el 50% de desnutrición infantil, ¿no? Y siendo el Perú uno de los países con mayor biodiversidad del mundo, ¿no? Entonces hay un trastocamiento en los valores alimenticios que es importante reivindicar. Nosotros tenemos un proyecto sobre biodiversidad y nutrición en comunidades indígenas que estamos valorizando los saberes y los valores de apreciación de la alimentación. Trabajamos con un equipo en la universidad y vamos hacia las comunidades, ¿no? Y también trabajamos desde los marcos de la complejidad, trabajamos temas como modelación por agentes, estamos trabajando cómo darle un marco también científico, técnico, ¿no? Y cómo promover el diálogo de saberes entre los conocimientos de los técnicos y los conocimientos de los indígenas, ¿no? en el manejo de la agricultura, en el manejo del agua, en el manejo del bosque. Es la única forma con la cual se puede revertir el cambio climático en los Andes del Perú. Escuchando a las comunidades tradicionales que han criado por miles de años, porque ellos llaman criar la biodiversidad. Ellos no siembran, sino crían. Es una relación mutua de reciprocidad. En la vida ellos conciben, todo da y todo recibe.
Disculpe, pero necesito parar. Pero tu presentación fue muy buena, muy bueno.
Gracias. Tenemos, por ejemplo, varios ejemplos que voy a pasar rápidamente por el tiempo. Trabajamos por la sostenibilidad en el uso de la energía. Trabajamos con los estudiantes estos saberes, los saberes interculturales y los saberes básicos de la ética humana. Tenemos un concurso, hemos sido invitados para trabajar en el marco de un proyecto que lanzó UNESCO Montevideo, y estamos trabajando con ellos también en un concurso que fue nacional y ahora se ve un poco más internacional. Tenemos la reunión de Jóvenes por la Vida, que algunos colegas han compartido cuando hemos hecho la reunión en Perú. Tenemos también bueno, trabajamos todas estas actividades están en el marco de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible y la Agenda de Educación 2030. Perú es un país que tiene una amenaza de sismos de alto impacto por las condiciones de la placa de Nazca, y trabajamos nosotros muy en nexo con los organismos del Estado, con los jóvenes de las universidades y las organizaciones civiles para preparar a la gente en lo que significaría enfrentar esta otra emergencia que nos sacudiría frente a la pandemia y que ojalá no se dé, pero tenemos que tener una cultura de prevención. Bueno, en el marco de, bueno, hemos convocado a cómics, a infografías, a un lenguaje mucho más accesible a la comunidad. En el marco de la pandemia hemos trabajado hemos llamado los diálogos por la vida para orientar a la comunidad universitaria, a la comunidad en general, sobre cómo enfrentar esta pandemia que ha sido tan dura en el país, y sobre todo cómo revalorar, porque miren, en el Perú hay un sector de pobreza fuerte a pesar del crecimiento del país, que están sobreviviendo porque tienen los valores andino-amazónicos, las ollas comunes, la ayuda mutua, ¿no? Lo que ellos llaman las micunas, ¿no? Que son las comidas colectivas, que han podido paliar el hambre y la necesidad en estos momentos tan duros de restricción de la economía, de pérdidas de trabajo, y que realmente ayudan mucho a poder reivindicar el amor, la justicia social, la equidad y la razón de ser, de estar en el mundo de una manera más humana.
Gracias, doctor, pero necesito parar.
Thank you very much.
Up next, we have RC Shenandoah, and we're going to be hearing from Dr. Steve Grande.
Great. Hi, everyone. Let me share my screen here as well. Excellent. Thank you so much, RCE Salisbury, for hosting this and pulling this together. And these meetings have been so influential to us and so helpful. And so it's great to see so many of you and reconnect, even if it is virtual. So I want to give just a brief update of where we are and continue to take inspiration from the other presenters tonight and last night. Very, very inspiring. The Shenandoah Valley is a region in Virginia and West Virginia in the mid-Atlantic portion of the United States. And we're both a geologic region, but we're also a cultural region, and we're also part of a larger watershed as well. And so as we talk about who we are, we need to make sure we also acknowledge that everything about who we are is connected to the land. And the land that we inherited is land that was originally indigenously habitated by both the Siouan, the Algonquian, and the Iroquoian peoples. And James Madison University, which is one of the hosts of our RCE, is named after no other than James Madison, who was considered a founder of the Constitution in the United States and also owned slaves and enslaved people. And we need to make sure that when we talk about our RCE, that we also acknowledge this fractured and problematic history as well. So I wanted to make sure before I went forward in talking about our region that we acknowledge that the history of this region and where we are today. So as I mentioned, this partnership is in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and that's just a remarkable watershed. And so I wanted to at least acknowledge that as well. We're about these trying to leverage the strengths of 5 regional colleges and universities to address community priorities. And I think that's one of our strengths and one of our biggest challenges. And so, like Puerto Rico talked about last night, we want to be honest about and be vulnerable about our successes and some of our challenges. We have had a number of challenges over the year, really kind of getting started and finding our feet, so to speak. And we continue to try to find our way forward. This last year, we had some great conversations with Kim Smith from Portland, who was very helpful to so many of us. And Kim has been helpful to us as well in finding our way. This is just a little bit about our region. And while we're a primarily rural area, most of the population lives in 2 metropolitan areas. And these are some images of those 2 areas as well. That makes up about 2/3 of the population. So while we are primarily rural, there are these urban centers, and that also speaks to many of the challenges in this area around things like poverty, rural poverty, transportation, and being able to access critical services are very challenging for people if they don't already have transportation. They don't already have childcare. There are many people that have jobs but don't make enough money to actually have a decent quality of life. And so that's a primary issue in this region. The 5 partners that I mentioned, the higher education partners, are photographed here, so you can see them. It's a mix of 4-year institutions and 2-year colleges and public institutions and private institutions in our region. Just a few things about the population that makes up our region. It's much more diverse than most people would think, particularly in the northern part of our region in Harrisonburg. It's a refugee resettlement area, so there are immigrant refugees from all over the world. Most recently, there's been a large immigrant group from the Congo. So it's a racially and ethnically diverse. There's also a large population of Old Order Mennonites and that particular religious faith. There's much more racial diversity in our cities and considerably less in our counties. So there's these massive political divides often between the cities and the counties that lead to stress and division. And then there's also an element that has a lot of skepticism about the United Nations. And so that sometimes undermines some of our thinking about how do we talk about education for sustainable development? How do we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals? So what we want to do just in the next couple of minutes is just really briefly just mention that there's lots of opportunities and capacity here, but that we're struggling with how do we make sure we do our work in a way that really addresses the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're constantly rethinking our structure that brings in the voices of the community, that brings in the voices of higher education, that connects to these larger SDGs. And we're getting closer. We're not there, but we're constantly trying to change that structure. So we're always adopting our bylaws and our and then actually who sits around the table to try to do a better job of doing the work. So one of the unique things about our area is that we have this amazing local food initiative. One of the ones that's most well known is Polyface Farms. It's an internationally known farm in our area. You may have, if you've seen the book Omnivore's Dilemma, it starts off at Polyface Farm. So that's in our region, but there's other examples as well. So there's this rich area of local food that's not only produced, but how it's done sustainably is very impressive. We can say that we successfully stopped a massive pipeline from being built that was on the books for years. And just this spring or summer, we actually stopped the Atlantic Coast Pipeline from being built. It's a huge victory. And I think it sends signals really across the globe that as hard as this is, on occasion, it can be done. We can stop multinational corporations from destroying this environment. So this was a huge success, and it was done by grassroots organizations in this area. And that speaks to one more asset or capacity in our area, which is just very innovative nonprofits and for-profits that do some really great work in this region, that we can't imagine our quality of life without some of these innovative organizations. I wanted to make sure I acknowledge them. The issues that we're facing are around probably all the SDGs, but these are the ones that are often more prominent. So you can see those there: climate action, gender equality, life below water, life on land, sustainable communities. And so we have faculty at our various institutions that are working on these issues. And we also have community partners that are doing good work. And what we see as our job is, how do we pull all that together? And that's where when it comes together, it's really outstanding. And when it doesn't, we're kind of left kind of frustrated and trying to figure out, how do we make the linkages stronger? How do we leverage all the resources of our higher education partners to address some of these pressing local issues? So one more kind of tension point is that our institutions have made commitments to sustainability. Our higher education institutions have made these commitments. And so we are trying to figure out how to support those institutions. They're all feeling the strain that's even gotten worse during COVID-19 of how do they manage the limited resources that they have. And so things are being cut. There are reductions, there are austerity programs, and how do they maintain these commitments in this environment? And so we're trying to support that, as well as support these larger regional efforts. And then just lastly, just some of the challenges that we see in our environment that I think are really not unique to our environment are things like the constant urbanizing and the spread of development into rural areas. The small family farms are really struggling. The suicide rate amongst dairy farmers continues to rise. The level of poverty, or it's not always extreme poverty, but the terrible decisions that many families have to make between putting food on the table and paying the rent and other decisions like that. So those are economic challenges, or social challenges, how to preserve the rural history of the region while also supporting economic development, cross-cultural competency. And then lastly, there's all kinds of water issues. Stopping the pipeline was a major success, but that doesn't really address all the water issues that were already in existence before the pipeline was proposed. So that just gives a flavor of what our RCE has been dealing with and addressing. And thank you for the opportunity to share with you all.
Thank you much, Steve. That was a great presentation. Hi, everyone. Brittany back again. I'm going to be introducing our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mr. Richard Stone. He is the CEO of Storywork International, and he is going to be representing us tonight from RCE Greater Atlanta. Looking forward to your presentation, Richard.
Mute. Can you hear me okay? Good. And you see the presentation okay?
Yep.
Good. All right, good. Thank you. And thanks for giving me some time on the program. Tonight, I want to talk to you about a program we're going to offer here in Atlanta, and we want to open it up to the other RCEs. And it's really about developing what I call your story intelligence to become a more effective leader. So let's see if I can get the slide to move here. There we go. So we're going to offer right after the first of the year a 7-week program, a training program for RCE leaders to actually enhance their story intelligence. And I've been working with the Atlanta RCE now for a couple of years. I moved here from Orlando. I've been working with storytelling for a long, long time, and have been bringing some of my tools and skills to making them available to the leaders here. Just to give you a little background, I've been writing books. I have a new book out on story intelligence that'll be coming out next year, and that'll be actually a template for a lot of the curricula that we'll be offering for leaders. So I want to tell you a little bit about the course, and if you're interested, I'll post up my email address. Please write me, and we'll get you more details. But we want to make it available. I think we'll have room up to 100 people. And I think it'll be something of great value for you. So let me talk to you a little. Whoops, let's go back one. Oh, there we go. Oh. There we go. So, you know, you all have seen this, but you haven't seen the little icon on the far left. When I started looking at the Sustainable Development Goals a few years ago, and some of the other work I've been doing, I felt there was something missing. And the thing that was missing was us as leaders. We often talk about all the activity is focused externally about making differences and making impact outside, but we're the instrument for the change. And if we do not develop ourselves and develop our human spirit, I don't think that we can be as effective as we'd like to be. So I think that we need to look at sustaining the human spirit, and that's what I want to talk to you about for a couple minutes right now. So first of all, I think what's the problem, we know we have lots of problems here in the United States. We've had horrendous fires. We've had, I think, 4 hurricanes that hit the southern Gulf Coast this season. The solutions are out there. We already know what the solutions are. Drawdown, a lot of the work with drawdown has shown that we have the solutions readily available, but there's a giant gap in terms of between instituting those. And I think the problem is that is not just with our imagination as leaders, but engaging the imagination of our communities. And I think that storytelling is the language of the imagination. And when we can perfect and develop that capacity, we can become much more effective at actually engaging others. Just to give you a little history of some of the ideas behind some of the things that we'll be talking about. Everyone's probably familiar with this phrase from Descartes, I think, therefore I am. He wrote that in the 1600s. And that kind of defined the way we think of ourselves and human capacity for a long time. Carl Linnaeus came along in 1758 and he named us Homo sapiens, and which means wise human or thinking human. And it's not surprising because of Descartes' impact. And IQ became really the focus, and leaders have been very focused on being logical. And we now know that giving people the scientific evidence for climate change and giving them all the data does not change people's minds. In fact, it actually often keeps them ensconced in their perspective. There's been some obviously great work around emotional intelligence. You're all familiar with that. In 1995, Daniel Goleman came out with this concept of emotional intelligence. It was really based on research that was showing that there's a lot more to us than just our thinking, and that to be an effective leader, you have to become much more aware and empathic. And I think that with the recent research on, especially the MRI research on the brain, we're now discovering that there's actually another kind of level of intelligence that I think undergirds both IQ and EQ. I call it story intelligence, or SQ. And I think we have a penchant for creating and living within stories, and that's the defining characteristic of what it means to be a human being. And so we're living in a story right now with the environment and with the SDGs. And the question is, how do we move the rest of the world to a better story? And so I would suggest that we need a better name than Homo sapien, and I propose we should think of ourselves as Homo neurari, as storytelling humans. And when leaders begin to embrace that and really develop that capacity, I think that we can become much more effective at making an impact around the SDGs. So really briefly, here's what the curricula is. I've identified 7 powers of story, and we're going to cover these 7 powers in the curricula. The first is the power to transport, to take us to other places. We've all grown up maybe with that little ditty, the cow jumped over the moon. And none of us say, when someone starts telling us the story that the cow jumped over the moon, we never say, well, wait a second, that couldn't happen. That's not scientifically possible. There's no air up there. We actually say, well, what happened next? So we allow ourselves to go along with the storyteller and to be transported to a new place. And this is really the fundamental underlying structure of stories that takes us to other places. And when we learn how to really utilize this, we can become very effective. The next is the power to communicate. And there's a lot of research that's showing now is that when we're telling a story, actually the mind of the people listening to us entrains to the story. And giving information and scientific data that doesn't happen. It looks more like the top 2 people. But when we're telling a story, suddenly our brains begin to look very similar. So learning how to really utilize this capacity to make a difference and to influence people is really important. The third is the power to enable learning. And we were just the other presentation we just saw on Indigenous learning is so crucial. And I've done a lot of work with a number of Indigenous teachers here in the United States who taught me a great deal about the approaches to enabling learning. In fact, they don't even have a word for teach. The best translation would be enabler of learning. So I think that this is a crucial thing that we need to learn how to use as educators, is to kindle a flame, not to fill the vessel. So how can we actually kindle a flame for change and new thinking, especially among young people? The fourth power is the power to create meaning. Ikigai is actually Japanese, which is a concept they're using, which is about creating greater meaning and context in our lives. And so I think as leaders, we need to discover what is most meaningful for us and which brings us the most purpose. The 17 SDGs is overwhelming. Where do we want to plant our feet? Where do we want to put our attention and energy? And how does that connect with what our deep calling and purpose is in life? The fifth is the power to transform. And what we'll teach you is how to use stories to actually heal old wounds and to actually open people to new possibilities. The sixth is the power to unite. And we're living in a world right now of great polarization. We know that stories can actually create a great deal of disunity, can actually separate people. But stories can powerfully bring people together. And there's a lot of technology with how to do that. Some of the colleagues I've worked with through the years have really developed some very powerful approaches as how do we bring people together around issues of importance. And finally, is the power to envision possibilities. And some people would say that storytelling is not so much about retrospective knowledge, but it's about prospective, about looking to the future. So how can we use story to implant in people an idea of possibility, to get them on board with a new story, a new vision for what the future could look like? And you as leaders need to know how to do that and be very effective with that. So proposed dates, we're going to start looking, I think, at January 5th. We'll go once a week for an hour and a half. It'll be workshop format. It won't be me talking so much. It'll be me actually leading you through some of these basic concepts and ideas to engage you. And here's my email address. I'll put it also in the chat. We may have a couple minutes, Brittany, right now for any questions. I don't know. I don't know how much time do I have left.
Yeah, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Who's got a good question for 30 seconds? Brian's got one, maybe, I think. I just thought, no?
No, I was just saying 1 minute. She said 30 seconds.
Oh, 1 minute. Okay, great.
Brian, now it's already up.
Use up 30 of my seconds, Brian.
Thank you, Richard.
Well, good. I will post up my email address in the chat. Please write me if you have interest or you know others who might be interested. And as we solidify the plans here in Atlanta for the Atlanta RCE, we want to invite all of you to come be a part of the program if you have interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have RCE British Columbia, and we'll be hearing from our presenters, David and Shannon.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I got to find a way to share my screen here.
All right. There's a green button that says share screen when you pop up the tab there.
I see that. So green, share screen. There we go. Now I got to find what I wanted to share.
That's how we roll in Canada. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm doing this from a laptop, which is part of the problem. So got to find so many windows to open up here. I'm not finding my window here.
Brittany, do you have it?
Here we go. Let's try this. That coming up now?
I have it too, David, if you want me to bring it up. It's whatever.
Is it there?
No, it's not coming up. Did you hit a share screen? And then there'll be like a lot of like little boxes. should pop up. If not, Brittany can probably pull it up.
Maybe we should just have Brittany do that if that's possible,
Yeah.
David, and that way.
Brittany, can you pull it up, please?
Yep, it says loading. Here we go, everybody. All right. And David, just tell me when you want me to change slides and everything.
Sure. Now I'm going to
Hi.
try to come back to the Zoom screen so I can see you all. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so
Go
Shannon,
ahead, David.
Shannon is here with me. So Shannon, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then I'll jump in.
Certainly. Tansene Totomek. My name is Dr. Shannon Letty. I am originally from Treaty 6 territory in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and I have been living on the ancestral territory of the Musqueam people since 1994 here in Vancouver, British Columbia. And I wanted to thank the other presenter that I heard today, and there were probably more, but I didn't catch it all, for making these territorial acknowledgements, because it's really important if we're learning from the land to remember that the land has a very storied history that it connects long before colonization and the formation of our countries. So hello from Vancouver, British Columbia.
I'm David Zanfleet. I'm at Simon Fraser University. And I'm actually, I actually really identified with the Kawarthas, Halliburton RCE. Thank you to that group for presenting, because I think we're on a similar topic. And I'm originally from Toronto, Ontario area, you know, traditional territory of Anishinaabeg and Mississauga. I'm currently living in Stolo territory in Chilliwack, BC. I think, you know, both Shannon and I are the co-directors of RCE British Columbia, which is kind of an unfortunate name for our topic. We should rename our province. What do you think? Shannon, should we get on that? Yeah.
Yep, sure, why not?
Yeah, we're neither British nor Colombian, so there you go. But our presentation is about, I think, decolonizing education and also bringing this context to the governance of our own RCE here in BC. I would like to speak first a little bit. I mean, this first, my first exposure to Indigenous knowledge, I met Gregory Kahede a couple of times through my work with NITAP out of UBC, where I know Shannon is now working. And it was really transformative for me as a Western trained scientist. I had lived in a number of Indigenous communities in the Yukon and in British Columbia, and this really resonated with me and informed my work in the science education and ecological education field from the very beginning. I'll let Shannon speak to the other references there.
Thank you, David. I think we just wanted to get to the thinking, asking people to think about the fact that that environmental education has deep connections to Indigenous education. So the ideas of sustainability that we bring into this discourse now, many of them have their roots in historic discourses that only are recently coming to light in the kind of published forms that we can all have access to. But I think earlier notions of stewardship that have been brought forward from many generations past are a really important consideration as we work out how to do this work together better now.
Great. And Brittany, yes, that's great. So I think one of these notions that, you know, I think is coming to the fore has been written, I think it's a Micmac principle of two-eyed seeing, but it was echoed in some earlier work, which was sometimes referred to as sort of bicultural science education, in this idea of border crossing. You know, so rather than looking at science or ecological knowledge as a purely Western idea, sort of keeping that, but also acknowledging that Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous worldview could contribute. And it's kind of like the notion, you know, if you have any science training, you realize the fact that we have two eyes allows us a better depth perception. And if you cover one eye or the other eye, you're actually not seeing things as clearly. So I think that's a really powerful metaphor. Go, Shannon. You talk about stratigraphy.
I'll talk about stratigraphy. We could have probably put that text a little darker, but that's okay. So just getting back to the idea that I spoke about at the beginning, that we live on storied land. And when we consider the places that we are, we often only consider them in our present context. Maybe if we've lived in the same place for a number of generations, we have some stories that go back. But I think it's important to think about how far back the stories go. They go beyond, especially for those of us who are newer to the Americas, they go beyond the histories of our arrivals and our families' arrivals. And when we start to think about the land as previously occupied, and when we start to look for evidence of those people still existing on the lands that we occupy, then we get a much better understanding of what is at stake in preserving what we've got. And this idea of colonial stratigraphy, I think, is an interesting way to conceive of that. I just wanted to add, along with the last slide, in the way of two-eyed seeing, that bringing Indigenous voices who are writing about sustainability education, environmental education, and land-based education is a way to do this work without having to take it all on yourselves. It allows us to be co-learners with our students.
Yeah, just to add maybe to that last slide, my own thought there, you know, one of the big things we're talking about in curriculum reform right now in British Columbia and other places is this notion of place-based education. And, you know, I think this idea of colonial stratigraphy takes that and deepens it. So, you know, sort of, I'm sorry, that's my dog barking in the background. She had to say something. But it's this notion of sort of taking place very seriously and looking back at all of the timeline, I guess, as part of it. Sorry, I'm very distracted by my dog. So pull it over to you, Shannon.
Sure. The last couple of slides are about a few strategies that we've used within our work together, mostly within teacher education and graduate programs for in-service teachers. And we often turn to doing circle work, sharing circles, storytelling circles, as a way of democratizing the classroom, decentering the power of the teacher to create circumstances in which we can collaboratively co-construct knowledge and in which everyone has an equal stake in the learning that's going on. And that's a really important part of the work that we do too, is it decolonizing schooling situations.
I could speak to this a little bit. One of the other presenters was talking about story. And I think this really kind of speaks to another pathway into how we construct knowledge, you know, this sort of idea of left brain versus right brain. And I have to, you know, I have to come clean here. I'm a scientist by training, and I'm having to work really hard to reclaim this part of my practice, this notion of aesthetics. And even if you're a science educator, I think this is a very big opportunity for us as another way in to learning about place and environment and social issues. Because not everyone comes at this from a kind of logical, cognitive place. And even I had the opportunity to interview David Suzuki a few years ago, and he admitted, he said that actually he became a scientist, but he fell in love with the environment before he became a scientist. So it's like we protect what we love, and maybe rather than going directly into the science of things, we need to start with aesthetics.
I am a science teacher. No, I'm not. I'm an art teacher. I don't even know what I teach. It's 5 o'clock here. I am an art teacher, and so this is another aspect of what I want to bring to our practices in sustainability and environmental learning, is just the opportunity to play, to do something with our hands while we're talking about rigorous content from the articles and readings for class. I think that is a more human way of learning together and a more traditional way of learning together. We would often have been gathered around peeling potatoes, making things, digging things, what have you. So this is a way of bringing that practice into a classroom. And I think it does something quite magical in terms of freeing our minds to open us to the subject at hand. I think we just have one more slide. I'm conscious of time as well. Yeah, there you go. And that's just sort of our summary. The notion of two-eyed seeing, thanks to those in the text who pointed out that that is Thomas and Ardina Marshall, who are Mi'kmaq. And I think we've mostly touched on these points, but really relationships for me are the most important part of learning with the land, learning in land-based ways, and learning in ways that honor Indigenous ways of knowing and Indigenous pedagogies that can help support us all to improve our collective well-being.
I'm muted, sorry. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, David. All right.
Thanks. Nice
That was-
closer.
And hi to your dog, David. He obviously liked the presentation, or she, because they were barking.
Right.
So tonight, we're going to conclude the RCE presentations with actually our RCE presentation over here at RCE Salisbury, and I am in the process of pulling it up right now. Sorry, everybody. Brian and Roberto, feel free to get it up if you can get it up before me, but I've got it. It's loading right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, here we go.
Don't worry, Brittany, I'm keeping time on you too.
Oh, shoot.
You trained him too well.
All right,
Hey, while it's coming up, we should say that we're out on a peninsula, and it's had people on this peninsula for thousands of years, and we're in Assateague and Piscataway and Ankhunk and territory, and so in light of Steve and Shannon, this is the neighborhood we reside in at Salisbury University. And in fact, you can see Steve, does that look familiar, that watershed?
Brian, want me to move on?
Yeah. That's this. I want to. The RCE Salisbury is housed in the Bosman Center for Conflict Resolution. It's named after Phil Bosman, who was a professor here. He passed away about 13 years ago, and he went to school with Martin Luther King. And when he was in the Peace Corps way back in the day, one of the guys who saved his life was Albert Schweitzer. So he brought a lot of interesting life experience to the center, and we renamed it for him in 2012. And the reason we have these pictures rather than, research and all that kind of stuff is pictures tell stories. But the one on the left, in the very back, you can see a guy in a statue sitting cross-legged, and that's Mahatma Gandhi. And his grandson is the guy in the foreground on the right with the glasses. That's Arun. And Arun spent time and lived with him in the Sabarmati Ashram. And Arun's been here in the center with us for 21 years. And he's sort of like the crown jewel. He's the spiritual guide, even though we do all sorts of, GIS, arbitration, that kind of stuff. When it comes down to the end of the day, he's the guiding person. Brent, you want to take the next one?
Yep. Sorry, everybody. I'm on a very sensitive computer. So our RCE location is actually located out of the Bosman Center for Conflict Resolution. But Brian and I, we also teach within the Department of Conflict Analysis and Dispute Resolution here at Salisbury. I have like 250 students this semester, and I always tell my students it's a really great degree because CADR, or that's our acronym, Conflict Analysis and Dispute Resolution, it's like a condiment. It goes with everything. And it's also really good job security, because if you study conflict, you're gonna have a job. There's conflict everywhere. So I actually am a graduate from our CADR department over here at Salisbury University, and now I'm very fortunate to be teaching with them right now. And we have, with us in our department, we have Dr. Brian Polkinghorn, who I co-direct this RC location with. Huge shout out to Dr. Keitha, Dr. Vita Suzuki, Alexandra Gentamartin, Dr. Jacques Coco, Dr. Thomas Boudreau, Ambassador Becker, for all joining us and for being leaders for us in the department, and also helping our RC location recruiting students for tonight. So thank you so much. Our department offers, you can get a minor degree, you can get a bachelor's degree, you can get a master's degree, or you can come work with us at RCE Salisbury. You have Dr. Jacques Coco right here on the right. Here's Tom, and here is all of our wonderful faculty. And this is a guest speaker right here in the middle. So I'm gonna move on. Brian or Roberto, would you like to take
Yeah,
the next one?
I'll take this one and Roberta can have the next one. But I do want to say that the Bosserman Center has been in and on the campus of Salisbury University for 28 years. And when it comes to RCE, it's the biggest partner, and the center is a teaching hospital. And all the presentations today and yesterday with student involvement, I hope you like this because we have 28 fellows, and this is the sort of the top rank here. We have people, and there's the countries they're in. So Dr. Rana is in Nepal, and he's working on 8 and 6 SGDs, and then Kasturi Gandhi is in India, and her background and the work she's doing is on 4, 6, and 13. And Odion is with us tonight, and he's doing meta mining research with us. And Ilan Bas, Ilan's down on the left corner there. He's a UK citizen, but he's lived in China for about, I don't know, 10 years, and he's doing research in China with us. And then Amr is Pakistani, and he's a graduate of Salisbury University, as is Odie. And then finally, Peter Kelly, he was my research assistant back in the 90s at Queen's University Belfast, and he's our doctoral research fellow, and he's at the Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution at George Mason University. So we have students doing a ton of different stuff. Hey, Roberta, you want to do this slide?
Yeah, I'll do it. So my name is Roberto, and right now I'm going to talk about a little bit about the graduate fellows that had a part in setting up this big summit for everybody. As you know, me, Arno, we have Arno Guillon. He's a UNESCO UNITAR fellow. He's from France. We have someone from Italy, Francesca Palaska. Over here, we have Travis Sterling with the Stanley Cup, and Hannah Prouse. And here are some more of our research fellows. We have a lot. Jessica Pierce, she actually just recently won the Goldwater Scholar. So congratulations to her. We also have Abe over here, right-hand side. We have Evan Polkinghorn over here. He's a UN Millennium Fellow, and Nathaniel Sampson, and he's also a research fellow. And if you guys want to take this one.
Yeah, I'll say this. Each one of those students and postdocs you've seen are doing research projects here or overseas, but as we move our way back into the university and look at the undergraduate students, their projects are all centered around here. And these are our Millennium Fellows. We had some Millennium Fellows on last night, especially from RCE Atlanta. And a lot of them are with health and well-being, because we have several pre-med students here. We've got folks that are doing stuff on access to education. We have folks that are working with immigrant populations here on the shore. It's everything they're doing is really exciting, and love to be able to take a couple of them, tell you about them, but we can't. But we're fortunate enough to be hooked up and be designated a UN Millennium Campus. And so this helps us with the Millennium Fellowship and all the good work that these folks are doing. Oh, who wants to take this one?
You can, Brian.
Okay, we're also working on Millennium Youth, and we want to start young. And this little guy here, when the outbreak hit, decided he wanted to do something different and not sit and watch TV or whatever, and got into all sorts of volunteering. And last weekend, he finished his 93rd night camping out, and he's learned how to cook over a fire. He's taught kids safe first aid and how to properly use all sorts of knives and hatchets and all those sorts of things. And that's the kind of thing, if we're going to start young, get them on sustainable living and things that we used to do when I was my age, before they had all this stuff you guys do nowadays. Get them back to that and appreciating everything about our environment and nature. And who knows, maybe these folks are going to change the world for us.
Brian, can I say one more thing really quickly?
Yeah.
We also have a special guest on our call tonight, Miss Krista Peak. She's also part of our RC Salisbury location. And Krista, can you hear me? Krista and I actually, my background is working with like child soldiers, human trafficking victim, a lot of restorative justice, working with local communities, even working with the United Nations. That's my background. And when I came over here and, you know, wanted to work on RCE Salisbury with Brian and I have been supporting Krista in a lot of her work, and she's been doing a lot of things through our RCE. But Krista, do you want to throw in really quickly, like what you've been doing through our RCE, through at Choices Academy and everything?
Sure. So through the RCE, I have been and with Brittany, we were able to hook up with our local Board of Education here in Wicomico County, and after going back and forth with them for about a month or so, they ended up placing us in a school, or the alternative school here in Wicomico County, called Choices. These students that we worked with primarily were middle school students, but within this academy, they also had high school students. They no longer housed elementary school students in this building. But we primarily worked with the middle school students. These students ranged anywhere from 10 to about 14 years old, predominantly male. 90% of the student population that we worked with had tracking devices on. 100% of them have been through the local court system and were either out on release, or this was kind of thus the name Choices. This was a choice. You go to the local juvenile detention center, or we place you in this school with a tracking device, and you're allowed to go home and things like that. So a lot of these kids are in gangs, so the gang mentality for them is very strong. The structure does not work for them. It doesn't work for the students. It doesn't work for any of the stakeholders, if we're being honest. So when we came in and we met with the principal, and then we met with teachers, and we were working with students when COVID kind of threw a wrench in everything. And unfortunately, we have not been able to get back to working with them. But I have spoken to a few of the employees there, a couple counselors and a teacher, who have given me kind of some insight on what's been going on with these kids through COVID, and how, you know, how they're making out in this virtual learning world that they were not used to doing. So, but my hope is that once schools reopen, that we will be able to go back and interact with these kids and kind of move forward with the plans that we had for them.
Thanks, Krista. Thanks, Krista. Thanks for joining us tonight. Brian, would you like to provide some concluding remarks? Now, we're actually going to be having a governance discussion. If anybody's part of it, it's going to be going on for a little bit more. And I'm really sorry that tonight's event went over, but it's still going to be on the Zoom via the same Zoom link. So.
Well, look, it's good to see everybody, and I hope that we can meet again face to face somewhere. And we're hoping to be able to actually plan something for the spring, but we have to see how things go. But I want to say thanks to Philip and Roger and Erie and everybody who's been so supportive of everything we've done. We really appreciate the fact that you took a chance on us and let us try and put this together. But you guys made it. You made it happen. So thank you, Kim. And everything you guys are doing really is inspiring. I'm glad we're able to record this, because we can now show students, when we talk about this, it's no longer abstract, it's real. People are doing good things. They're at the right time, right place, doing the right things. So thank you very much.
And also a very happy early birthday to Charles, who is part of this call.
Oh, yeah.
Charles Hopkins. So, yeah. Not until the 29th, but yeah.
That's right. Not till, don't push it. But thank you very much.
Happy birthday.
I remembered because we were filling out our RCE application and you were helping us and you had mentioned it was your birthday. So yeah.
I think he's helped everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks,
Brittany.
everybody. Have a great night. I'm going to stay on to facilitate the governance discussion that's going on from 8 to 8:20.
Well, how about 8:26?
Anyway. Oh, sorry. 8:26 plus.
8:46.
And might I
For
just say everyone is
EST.
welcome for this. So
Yes.
Everyone's welcome.
yeah.
Great. Stay healthy, everyone. Bye-bye.
Charles.
Brittany, did you have the presentation? I don't know, or Diego, did you send the new version to Brittany? Okay, so
I didn't. My bad.
Okay.
It's okay.
I thought, Roger, you would share the screen.
Okay, I think I can do that. All right, so hold on, let me just get into that mode here. Sorry. Share screen, and which is it? This one.
Take advantage of your great camera.
And slideshow. Oh, enable editing.
Sorry, to be clear, this is a private meeting, right? So some of us should just step away because you guys are
Well,
the ones.
this is for all the RCEs in the Americas. So
to learn
unless
about.
unless you're not from the Americas, that might be a reason not to be in.
I'm so sorry. I thought I thought it a private meeting on the thing.
My fault. I didn't know.
Okay, so I just want to begin by introducing the governance working group that has been working to try and put some structure, a little more structure to our relations within the Americas. And I just want to, on this opening slide, you can see the members who've been kind of working on this in sort of an ad hoc way. We'll have, I'll just begin to introduce a couple of slides, but then Pam and Diego will take the majority of the presentation, and Meghna will mention the event that's occurring on this Friday, where we can really get into this in more depth. And so hopefully all your RCEs can at least have one or two people in on that conversation on Friday. So as RCEs in the Americas, we have been chipping away at this for a long time. We have been building ways of getting together. I think we are much more grassroots in a lot of ways than perhaps the other continents. And so it's a question of building up trust, just not only at our own local level, but now I think we're at the stage where we can build a lot of good structure. And so in 2015, actually, we had an agreement coming out of Grand Rapids, which I think we would want to revisit. But a lot of RCEs have been collaborating inter-RCE level, and we're really just kind of discovering what the possibility is for those inter-RCE collaborations. And so just this past year, we've had these conference calls that have been going on pretty much quarterly. And so we wanted to build a structure that builds on top of what's already occurring. So the idea being that, form follows function. Let's try and shape something that enhances our local RCE activity and tries to follow what we are already on a trajectory doing. I just wanted to put up a slide, though, about our principles, a couple of principles that really are important in thinking about our governance structure. Because what makes us really viable as RCEs is our local autonomy and our ability to do the education for sustainable development work at our local level, the way we need to do it, using the expertise that is often grounded in our local communities, plus with academic and other expertise. And so when we think of a governance structure, the governance structure really has to serve and build the capacity of our local regions. In a way, that's the primary focus. We're free to disagree. I mean, we all have academic freedom, and our regions have that too. And so again, we can't have kind of a top-down structure. It really has to be coming from the grassroots of RCEs. The other thing, of course, is the freedom of RCEs when we engage in these larger Americas projects to participate or not. You know, I think that's important on specific initiatives. And when we're giving voice to RCs in the Americas, again, RCs can choose to be represented or not, depending on what the projects are. But we do share common identities in terms of the UN and the UN frameworks and the SDGs, where we can always advocate and do America's work. The second thing, of course, is where we derive our authority. And so our authority is derived from our acknowledgement by the UN University. And the UN University, I think, wants us to be self-sustaining. That's what makes us sustainable as RCEs. And so in terms of reporting and accountability, we have obligations at that level. And so really it's a question of how do we enhance what we're doing in a way that doesn't make more work for us, but really builds our RCEs. And so what I want to do now is turn it over to Diego and Pam. And each of you, I don't know who's going first, but just tell me when you want the slide to move forward and I'll do it.
Okay, I think it's me, slides 4 through 7. So thanks so much. Hola a todos, que gusto de verles. It's really nice to see everyone. And hi, Brian and Brittany and everyone from Salisbury. Thank you so much for organizing. This is amazing. And it's just a testament to the resilience of our RCE Americas during a pandemic. So Roger has been our guiding light, and Kim, you have a lot you've contributed to most of this. So let me just say that Diego wrote this, and I'm going to give him credit and just let everyone look at the purpose. So we all need a mission statement, right, for why we're organizing. And so our governance working group would be that arrow pointing us in the direction complete as America's RCEs to become a leading network in the region, transforming what's possible into action. So not just talking about it, but acting together, and to achieve solid results in the Americas for education for sustainable development, and obviously accomplishing the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So I want to thank Jill from RCE Saskatchewan as well, who started these conversations last year in the wonderful and hard to forget Burlington. So hi everybody in Vermont, it was lovely. And we started conversations, and Maida is on this call, I think right now, from Brazil. And really as a result of those conversations, we started having, like Roger said, some quarterly meetings. We developed some task force. And so this is just like phase 2 of strengthening our collaboration together in the Americas. Okay, next slide. Thanks, Roger. So we're going to skip this slide because this would be sort of an end result, and go to the next one, please. And we're thinking that we would have a steering committee, and we put this in the shape of a circle, because the steering committee would be composed of the leaders of task forces, many of which we already have in education, sustainable cities. We don't have one in youth, but we certainly have had young people attend our meetings, and Chris from Atlanta has certainly been engaged in our youth initiatives. We've coordinated successfully with them in South Carolina. A task force for strategic initiatives, research. Brandon has been working on research as well. So the idea would be to have a network of task forces in specific areas working on specific things, and the heads of those task forces would be on a larger steering committee. And the task forces would be obviously thematically based. We could talk about what other task forces we need. They would set the goals, their own goals. They would set their means of reporting and reviewing annually, as well as designating their times. Next slide, please. And what would the steering committee look like? Sort of the organizing structure in a very, I want to say organizing light structure, not to put too much pressure on anyone, especially during a pandemic. But in addition to having representation from all of the task forces to be able to coordinate those activities, we were thinking that, and Kim has really been working a lot on this, on media and communication. We were thinking, and Roger really pointed this out, excuse me, it's a great idea, cooperation and outreach to other organizations in the Americas. We have the Organization of American States, we have the Pan American Development Corporation. So we have a number of inter-American organizations that we haven't reached out to and to have representation of the SDGs and our work in those organizations. Technical, like a website, etc., as well as administration and potentially other things. And this is up for conversation. Next slide, please. So the task forces we were thinking would have maybe some meetings, potentially monthly or maybe not, maybe every other month. They would define their goals, their strategies, their projects, their outcomes. They would manage themselves in some type of collaborative tools that the steering committee would help design. And they would monitor and report, and they would report at our annual meetings to, as a group, see how we're cooperating and collaborating together. And the idea is that we have so many rich and robust activities, but we could be better collaborating together, having exchange programs, interjecting our work at the local level and sustainable development at international levels as well, applying for grants together. And Kim sent me a really wonderful idea of a National Science Foundation grant that actually funds networks in the US and outside of the US. So that would be a perfect opportunity for us.
Do you want me to grab the link and put it in the chat?
Oh, that'd be awesome. Thanks, Kim. And with that, I'm going to let Diego continue. And I want to give all credit to Diego for creating our slide template and for motivating us.
Thank you, Pam. Hey, okay. First of all, it's been amazing, RCE Salisbury, for putting this together. Amazing work. And thanks to everybody. Philip, Roger, Chuck, the service center, all of you in other RCEs. The work you've been sharing and doing is impressive and really inspiring. So basically, going back to what Pam was saying, actually, I think all of this started in back in 2018 in the meeting we had in Argentina. We started talking about collaboration and shared impact, and then we sort of picked it up from there in Burlington and gave it a push. So basically, what we've been sort of thinking was how to put it together and start imagining what it would look like to be able to actually go regional in the whole sense of the word, continental, and to be able to showcase the difference the RCE network can bring in face of the challenges we have during this coming decade. So in this sense, these are just a few ideas that we want to put forward and share with you. Hopefully, many, if not all, RCEs will join us this coming Friday to be able to have a really interesting and dynamic discussion and working session. So the idea is, again, to organize ourselves in a steering committee and task forces or working groups, theme-based, as Pam said, so we can focus and make the most out of our commitments, our capacities, our efforts, our resources, in order to actually bring about this structure for the whole of us. You can see there different possibilities that they're pointing out, just a few ideas. Next slide. I won't be reading everything, of course. It's a bit too late. So these are, of course, we will be sharing this. The idea is to share with you, some scopes, responsibilities, let's say, possible deliverables or outputs for each and every committee, task force, or commission, etc. The idea of start thinking about it and how to put it together in a comprehensive way. Next slide. So we have cooperation, we have communication. I think communication and marketing in the good, in the good sense. I think it's crucial in the sense that we can actually basically communicate the existence of the RCEs and the network and the difference we can make. So in that sense, as we are in a digital world, the possibility of developing a new identity for us with a logo, a brand manual, brand kit, etc. A web portal we've been already sketching out, a communication strategy, designing content, developing content, and pulling together all the resources we have from different RCEs that would like to join this committee or task force, so we can actually expand the reach of the things we're doing. Next slide. Technical. This is a very specific one that I actually, part of my presentation in Burlington addressed this. I think we need to beef up our game in the sense that we need to be in line with the narrative and the things we are proposing from the UN system in terms of education for sustainable development, the 2030 agenda, SDGs, etc. And of course, the Paris Agreement and other frameworks. I believe sooner than later, we as part of the RCE network should make a public commitment to be carbon neutral, at least by 2030, the latest, if not earlier. We need to walk the talk in that sense. And of course, that has to do with being able to do the math and do our own calculations of what that entitles and what it takes. Of course, has to do with bringing each and every RCE carbon neutral. And of course, how we report on our impact and the differences we can make in terms of responsible production and consumption, biodiversity, water, clean energy, etc., etc. We need to pull those numbers together and show the collective impact we can actually make. And as Pam was saying, administration in the sense of having a team scanning for funding opportunities and dedicating some time to streamline that the economics and financial side of things that we know are essential and sometimes a challenge. But there are opportunities that are being untapped and we really consider should be addressed pronto. There are too many things to do, so we will need resources. Again, research. We should be, from my perspective, doing some research on the things that we really consider key in order to advance our knowledge on the things that we're doing to develop best practices, etc., but also on the impact that on the territory, right, and the audiences, etc. There are tons of different possibilities, but I think we can actually do some really interesting difference there, and of course share and publish evenly. Education, of course, nothing nothing much to add there. We know what we're talking about. But again, the idea of sharing best practices and develop sort of a trademark of what, you know, education for sustainable development is through the lens of an RCE, and actually addressing the challenges we have in the Americas, which are different from perhaps the ones that are happening in other continents. So we need to actually understand what we mean by this. Youth, of course, they are the key element in all this. Much of the things that I'm describing are already happening in Bogota. My, you know, hats off for the kind of things they're doing. Actually, they were showing some numbers and KPIs in terms of the impact they're making. So they're already in line with the spirit of all this. And I believe the youth in each and every RCE can actually engage with this very easily. And strategic initiatives in you know, Pam was mentioning sustainable cities and communities. That's, from my perspective, one possible initiative, one that it's already going, but perhaps we can talk about many others. We have tons of different possible combinations of SDGs. So not only at the local level, but also initiatives of cooperation at the continental or sub-regional levels. So there's a lot to think about in that regard. Again, sustainable cities, to be able to understand how to go about it and make the most out of it. Key elements. And yeah, and this is something that I can connect with a recent presentation about storytelling. I think that yesterday somebody was asking which SDG was more relevant to us. And I believe that, of course, there are multiple possible combinations, but I think it would be interesting to have a conversation regarding storytelling from the perspective of the SDGs. What's the yellow brick road? Do we start thinking sustainable development from the perspective of partnerships, and the whole purpose is to end poverty, or is it that because the SDGs and the 2030 agenda has to do with leaving no one behind, then SDG number 10 is at the heart of it all? Or is it SDG 12, 13, and 15 at the core of the education for sustainable development, an end and not the means to accomplishing sustainable development? I think there's a lot of potential discoveries in discussing how we structure the storytelling about the challenges we're facing, and how the SDGs can actually help us get the story right. Yeah, Magna?
Yeah. So we've been working on this for the last few weeks, and we figured 20 minutes is not enough time to kind of have a meaningful discussion around this and to put some action into this thought. And so we thought we'll schedule a meeting on Friday from 3 to 5 so that people can join and participate and give us feedback on what they think, because what we have presented is just from our discussion. Others might have different ideas. So we just wanted that kind of a feedback. And I know everybody cannot make it, and there will never be a time where everybody can make it. So we just picked a time and a date. with as a follow-up to this 2-day meeting, just to keep the momentum going. And like Brittany said, we will record it and share it with everyone, and perhaps even have a follow-up meeting sometimes in November to take the conversation forward, because like from our past experience, I don't think this was something that can be accomplished in 1 2-hour meeting. So it's going to take 2 or 3 meetings. So we hope everybody can join us on Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, using the Zoom link that Brittany has set up for this meeting. Roger, you have any concluding remarks?
No, well,
just a final word from my side. This is a timeline that we will share, but of course it has to do with goals and own expectations and possibilities.
Right.
In the sense that, you know, in aligning our work with the context, the fact that we have the Education 2030 launch in Berlin next year. I think it's a great moment to actually, you know, make a difference and show the next phases of the Americas network. But of course, we will have to do it step by step. But you know, aligning ourselves with a shared timeline, I think it's useful. So this is just a few suggestions about it.
Right, and our intention is that if we have a consensus and agree on a structure, perhaps this is something that can be implemented going forward. And we were thinking that at every RCE of the Americas meeting every year, we can have a meeting of the governance before or after the RCE meeting, as a way to just touch base and see what is working, what is not working, what do we have to modify, because everybody has learned from their experience with their respective RCE that this is work in progress, and committees have to be changed, people drop in, people join, and so that's just how things are. So we are hoping this is something that can be implemented next year.
And if I might just say, I think part of the value of creating these structures is so that we can mobilize more participants from our local regions to be engaging with each other at the Americas level, because I know as coordinators, we find this is such a rich experience that we always want to be sharing with our ordinary members who are doing so much good work at our local regional level. And once we have different task forces structured, we can then tap people on the shoulder at our local levels and say, you know, there's a task force and this is exactly in the area you're working in. Would you be willing to be on that committee on behalf of the RCE? The other thing too is we've got partners who are willing to provide us with technical expertise and so on, but we just need to be asking them and structuring it in some way so that they can put some of their efforts towards the Americas as a whole. So I think it's an opportunity for us to really extend the invitation of the good work we've already been doing in terms of our collaboration in the Americas to a much broader set of members, both individuals and organizational partners that we have.
Thank you, Roger.
So I'm not sure. I think we left a day in between this meeting and Friday because we wanted people to think about this. And so I wonder, Brittany, if these slides can be put somewhere that people can look at and reflect upon. I think people are probably kind of tired right now.
Roger, I think they're in the Americas folder, Pam said.
Okay, all right.
It is on the Google Drive, but yeah, I mean, I think we updated it today, so we'll share the latest slide deck on the Google Drive so everybody can access it. But if for some reason folks cannot make it on Friday, and if they can email either one of us or Brittany saying they would be interested to be part of this conversation, we'll make sure that we send them the slide deck separately via email, or even keep them in the email thread as we proceed forward with future meetings.
And don't forget, Maida is here still, and she's our organizer for the Americas meetings quarterly. And so we can begin the conversation on Friday and then continue the conversation. We always have great participation on those. So we can start thinking about the steering committee and the themes for the task forces. And then we can have sign-up sheets for people to think about it maybe after Friday even, so that at the next America's RCE meeting, we have some commitments and we break down into some task forces and start with goals, et cetera. It's a process, but I want to thank Roger and Chris and Megna and Diego and Kim too, and as well as Charles and Philip for inspiring us to at least try.
Yeah. This actually conversation started from the last time when Myra organized the meeting, and everybody got up the call, and Pam and I ended up talking for 1 hour after that call, and then we decided to email Roger and Philip and everybody. So, thank you so much, Myra.
I'm thrilled that you guys stepped up and taken.
Maybe we should invite Philip. Do you have anything from the UNU perspective that you would like to say in relation to
that's what I wanted to ask. I think this structure sounds great. It actually sounds a lot more coordinated than the Asia Pacific structure. And I wanted to also underline, Roger has a great point in that please share this with your RCE members. One of the things I do see, and especially in some of the other continental regions, is it is the coordinators doing everything. And they're always complaining about burnout, but then they also are reluctant to kind of give up that ownership. And so that's one thing I would really stress to all of you is for these committees, please bring in other people from your RCEs. Like that's the only way it's going to be accomplishable. And it's a better experience for them too. Like, as we've said, as coordinators, a lot of you get to meet the international component, but a lot of the local RCEs don't. And in East Asia, that's been one of the really successful aspects of international networking is it's not their coordinators in Japan or Korea or China that are going to these working group meetings. It's other members, including youth. So we see a lot of really good participation regionally and sub-regionally around that. Maybe really quickly, are there any other specific questions? Maybe one other thing I will stress is in terms of grant writing and stuff, your area is incredibly diverse. So that is one challenge you have to work with. The other continents don't. There are pretty clear sets of priorities, at least on the sub-regional level for other continents. For all of you, you kind of work with all 17 of the SDGs. And just as it's harder with a lot of chefs in the kitchen, it's harder with a lot of chefs that want to make a different dish. So be patient. Even if you just get 2 or 3 of you together to work on a given project, I think that's a success. But your region is simply so diverse that I would set the expectation for trying to get, like with, for example, like Burlington and Puerto Rico have done. I think that's a great start. If you can build on some projects like that, that's fantastic. But from what I've seen with the data I've analyzed, your priorities are so diverse, it's going to be very difficult to have all of you working on one given thing, which is fine. You just need to recognize that from the early onset and not be disappointed that your different RCEs are going to have different priorities.
Right. Thank you, Philip. That's so wise. And on top of it, I mean, I want to just really congratulate the group that did get together and say, let's work on governance, just like other folks. Let's try to work on communications. And I know Jenny, or if anybody here from Atlanta, you guys worked hard in building a structure, and yet it was hard for folks to even be like, let's input data. Like you, Philip, you've been saying the same thing with UNU. So my one question, since Philip's on this call too, is even what role would you see UNU playing even in the communications piece? Like, well, where do some of these things kind of align with your structure, and then what autonomy do we have? So I want to just honor that too.
Oh, well, as governance
Bigger
structures,
question.
You're pretty autonomous. Again, individually, RCEs are responsible for reporting. And so whatever governance structure you have, I think should really underlie that, because you know, reporting one project a year is kind of the bare minimum for an RCE's function. So, and if you're working on joint projects together, that's great. Like you can both input that as a project. But in terms of organizational structure, we convene, but we usually don't get involved with governance per se. So I'm happy to advise, and I'm sure all of you and you is like, we're happy to provide a platform and a space for convening. But in terms of governance structure, what I've seen here presents looks really good. There's nothing that would like contradict. The only thing I think is important to keep in mind is what Roger mentioned, is that to quote, from the early 2000s, you do have to go with coalitions of the willing. Like you're not going to get everyone on board for everything, and you have to make peace with that, or you're going to get discouraged quickly. So I think that's one of the things the Americas, it's very binary compared to other regions. Like you either want to work completely individually or everyone at once. And what we've seen in other regions is most successes come when it's just like coalitions start forming, and it's like, 4 or 5 RCEs are like, well, we really want to work on like climate action. Well, let's just do it, versus pressuring all RCEs to make that their priority, and then you get pushback. So
sounds great.
And I think the point, and I think Diego, you had this on one of the slides, the value of scaling up individual RCE projects so that we start participating. So even just at this meeting, there have been so many good projects where the RCEs have said, we're willing to have others participate with us in these projects. So we don't need to rebuild a project. We just want a lot more participation, and having some body that can kind of monitor that and sort of encourage. So it's not just individual RCEs sort of pleading, but no, it's like, here's a list of all these different things that if you become an RCE in the Americas, these are things you can join in on. And I think the other key thing too is the need to have some kind of body that can assist in getting a greater number of RCEs across the Americas. Because I think if we want to change a lot of our national governments where we've got federal, states, and so on, we need a lot more RCEs within each country to be able to be not only have the knowledge, but the kind of collective representation across larger geographic areas. Yeah.
I don't know if folks saw this in the chat page. I'm going to put the link in one more time just as an invitation, but United Nations Association is hosting the big celebration next Thursday. And the Assistant Secretary General of UNEP and several other people are going to be from our region, from the Americas region. They're going to be presenting. It's a like hour-and-a-half open conversation. So I'll just put the link there again. We want to. And again, it's a national, international invitation. So, but happy 75th anniversary! Yay to the United Nations! Woohoo!
Thank you, Kim.
Sure.
Thanks, Brittany, for hosting the meeting. This was great today.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone, really appreciate it. Take good care.
Okay.
See you Friday.
Good to see you.
See you. Bye.
Hey, Chris. See you soon. Bye bye.
Buenas noches.
Hermano, nos vemos.
Bien, bien. Cuídense.
Vos también.